Okay, so pretend this is your race car. It's on the trailer, and you have an accident. Ouch! At least your truck's insurance will pay for another one? Yeah, not so fast. Standard insurance won't replace your race car, whether it's in the trailer, in the paddock, in the garage, or the repair shop. But at Haggerty, we can protect it for what it's really worth anytime it's off the track. No matter what or where you race, offer less than a set of race tires. Haggerty, let's drive together.
Hungry for SVRA action? Well, the best way to enjoy classic auto racing is with a delicious classic from Mission Foods. Green flag your race-watching snacks with Mission's mouth-watering race day recipes. Try some of our tasty tacos, piled high nachos, fresh chips with guac, and more. So gear up your ride and fuel up those stomachs with delicious Mission Foods. Now that's too fast.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome once again to Watkins Glen. I'm Jonathan Green, and as you can see, we have on the Hilliard U.S. Vintage Grand Prix for 2023 cars on track, and don't sound as surprised as I do, but because of the fog earlier this morning, but the green flag waves on our first race of the day, and I'm delighted to be joined by Cord Christalt, who should have been out there, but isn't, sadly, because his car's a bit wonky. But he joins me again here for this race as he did yesterday. And I'm just going to let you tell me who you see, because we've not got everybody out there today, because obviously we've had a bit of a sort of a staccato start to the day, because we had fog in the morning. It's now quite wet out there with rain, so not everybody has decided to venture out. But anybody you see and recognize, let me know, Cord. But welcome again as we get ready to bring you the 2020 version of the Dick Mooney Memorial Race, which is Group 6 and Group 12.
Rick Mooney out there in his dad's C3 Corvette. It looks like he's in second right now, which is really cool, seeing that car out for this race. I saw Ray Zisa's yellow C4 World Challenge car, and then I think I saw Dell out there in the C4, but I'm not 100% sure. But it looks like this Camaro's really moving.
Yeah, this is the number 7 of Paul Toombs in the Ford Mustang.
Yep.
And he is pulling away as they go down. Now you can see the weather here at Watkins Glen. We're great to finally get the drone up, because it was looking a little bit touch and go for a while. But as you can see, the Glen is coming alive, and the beautiful green that is part of New York State as we sit high above the village of Watkins Glen, and we are celebrating its history, which goes all the way back to 1948. And we have a special guest coming up, as we're going to bring the Grand Marshal, Bill Green, in here, who's pretty much attended every one of the Watkins Glen races over the years. He's a resident of the village, and he is a encyclopedic knowledge of all things Watkins Glen, so it's going to make my life a lot easier, because we want to hear from him and what he's got to say about this wonderful location.
And I love this shot right here. You can see
in the
boot, all the fog that lifted all morning. The fog's been impending, and it kind of, pushed back a couple of these races. But, that's a beautiful car right there going into 9.
So, Cord, I mentioned that you're not out there. What do you usually drive in Group 12, and what happened?
Yeah. So, typically I drive a C5 T1 car, which is a Corvette. It ran SCCA Hoosier Tire Super Tour, and we've raced it for the past, handful of years, 8 years or so. Now that it's getting a little bit older, it's actually 21 years old, so we started racing in SVRA. And on my second lap in qualifying, the car just shut off. After a little bit more research the last 2 days, I think it might have been the mass airflow sensor.
Okay.
Actually went, and then the plugs got washed out. So we're going to take it home tonight, and hopefully it'll be ready for the next one. But
I'm sure our audience would like to know, how hard is it to attend and keep up with all of the maintenance that you need to do to make sure that it's got, it's able to go racing?
So the first and foremost thing is when we get home, the oil gets drained in all the cars.
Right.
Like, as soon as they're on track, I know a lot of people don't typically do that, but usually we don't have engine problems, and that, is definitely a huge portion of that. It's definitely a little bit more of a hassle and a little bit more expensive, obviously, with it has 22 quarts in the car, I think. But that definitely helps out the longevity of the life. you know, once we get it back to the shop, there's a big checklist of things to get it turned around for the next race. The T1 car is a little bit easier to work on than the C3 that we have, but that's only because it's just like a plug-and-play car, more or less.
Welcome to the booth, Ben Sissel, my MG and all things SVRA expert. Welcome, Ben.
Well, thank you very much. Look at this beautiful Mr. August driving there in that 199. Another Shelby, which, you know, now with the value of these cars, it's kind of crazy. But I do have to give you some props. So I was talking to Rick Mooney's sister and mom and the wife of Dick Mooney, and she said she has a lot of family members in the Pacific Northwest that watched our broadcast yesterday who are avid ESPN F1 viewers. Said you were absolutely brilliant on the commentary. Said, I need a lot of work, but you did a great job. So I love it. The good, honest feedback from our fans.
That's all that matters.
I love it. So welcome. Thanks for joining us.
If we're going to pat each other on the back, I met the people from Customers Bank this morning, and I said, you know what? We've moved overnight. We have moved your sticks to get a better view at turn 11, and they were very pleased to hear that.
So we've got Toombs in the front, and then Rick Mooney right behind him in that beautiful number 88 that his dad started campaigning in the late 90s. And then Scott Shadle, but this is the battle right here for third, fourth, and fifth, it looks like. And then I got to talk about Venditelli here that we're seeing. He's racing also with Blaze Chitta from Canada, a dentist, beautifully prepared car. And I got to give it to his crew because just yesterday he was having some problems with the rear end, maybe some half shafts, universal joints. So obviously, they found some universal joints somewhere in the small village of Watkins Glen, and he's out there racing, doing really well.
Oh, there's plenty of history in those bars. Oh, look at that.
He got loose,
Bank.
too, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Popping out there.
I should have moved him a little bit further to the right.
No. Well, I can move Joe if you like.
Yeah, we can do that. Yeah, exactly. But look at this. So this is, and TV doesn't really do it justice on how wet the conditions are. It isn't actively raining right now, but the track is definitely wet.
It's wet, yeah.
You might call this a sunny British day.
This is an absolutely glorious summer day in England. In fact, this morning I thought I'd just woken up in Snetterton.
Well, and the problem with this condition is you can't put reins on the car, even though I'm talking about a 12A car that actually has real rain tires, because they just get too hot and get burned up. But, you know, some of the bias ply tires that are on the 6 cars, you know, these are very tricky conditions for them. So just, you know, them being historically significant and getting them out here, it's great to see.
Ray Zizza in the Corvette. I wonder 1990 Corvette.
I wonder what he did with the Corvette, because you can see that he's running different wheels in the front. So I wonder if he put some kind of reins on there.
No, so actually we were down talking to Ray earlier this morning. He's running the Hoosier R7s, which is a pretty hard compound, even in the dry. But those wheels actually are World Challenge wheels, because that's a World Challenge Corvette. It's pretty trick what they did for World Challenge. Like, it has, I know there's a few different things, you know, like the brakes, they had apparently a 3-piston caliper on the front that, you know, is obviously different than what the C4 Challenge cars were.
Well, you're watching the Dick Mooney Memorial Race, and I don't know if either of you are versed. I think you are, Ben, on Dick Mooney himself, but I got a little bit from Pam this morning about how well, you told me yesterday as well how this race came to be, as it were, or Dick Mooney was a sort of investment banker, I think.
Yeah, and longtime vintage race supporter, raced all over the place, and when he passed away, I think his family and the vintage racing community said, well, we've got to do something to memorialize him, and especially with Group 6. He was such kind of a stalwart in Group 6, so happy to have him here. A lot of his family is here, and I'm sure a lot of his family is tuning in. Got to give it up also, that was Mark Hannafin in that number 85 yellow Camaro, but a car to look out for is Tony Lisa. He's currently 9th, but he's in that Pantera, and you were talking about the R7s. Yeah. I was talking to his dad earlier. They took some old R7s and grooved them this morning to try to give them some traction. But really, that's a mid-engine. The only car out there I can find that would be kind of a mid-engine car, it's this white Pantera coming up here pretty soon. Yeah, you can see right there in the shot. Here he is.
Here,
but look for him to move up, because once he figures out where he gets the grip, that mid-engine balance is really going to help. But
well, just seeing the Pantera out there is very cool. You know, how many Pantera race cars do you see? And you know, my parents have had a bunch of De Tomasos. Like, I learned to drive a manual on a Mangusta. So, you know, those cars are very, very brutal. Maybe the Pantera is a little bit more tame than the Mangustas were, but still, even so, in these conditions, you know.
There's Rick Orton in there in the number 14, who competed with his friend in Trans Am back in the 70s and is out here. He's been our Group 12 champion in years past, came to our school at Roebling Road, but it's uncommon to not have him at a track. He's usually at a lot of these races, and really great to see him. But we're used to seeing him in a red Corvette, but he's out there in that red, white, and blue, number 14. And I have to give it up for our leader, Paul Toombs. You're going to like this. From England, out there, he races a Lotus 26R in Europe, and will be racing that at Spa in 2 weeks.
Oh, wow.
But right now, he's probably thinking this is a beautiful sunny day.
I'm going to say this is a typical Spa day as well.
He's out there. He's in the number 7 Camaro out there leading this race. So nice job, Paul Toombs.
It's funny, actually, when you go to the Nürburgring and you go to Spa, both of them are up in the hills, especially the Eiffel Mountain one in the Nürburgring. And the joke is, if you can see the castle, we're going racing. If you can't see the castle, we're not going racing.
So there's that Pantera we were talking about, the what I would call a mid-engine car. If you look at the back, it's behind the driver, but it is right behind the driver.
Yep.
And big American V8 and an Italian-looking car. I just love that. We're used to seeing them on the
there's a spin.
Spin there. I think that was Hannafin. Spins at the entrance of the carousel. So, like I said, Lisa's going to be moving up a little bit here. And then that's Del Bruce in that number 99.
You know, for those that, because TV does belie, you know, the speeds, and, you know, it's very hard to, understand the undulation, which we're watching right now, coming downhill. There's that spinner. But, they're pushing on.
You know, I wonder if
trying to get that lock rear end going.
Yeah, I wonder if he got on the curb on the exit there and just hit the paint and spun around, potentially.
Looks like he's not trying to get back on track, though.
Yeah.
So maybe he
might have broke something
in the rear
as well.
end.
Right.
Yeah, Mark Hannafin in that 70 Chevrolet Camaro Z28.
You know, that's these conditions, again, back to how difficult they are, that's a very common thing, is if you get some lockup or some wheel hop on a downshift, you know, you can break a diff very easily.
Coming into the inside.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, it might look like right now these big American muscle cars are going really slow, and they are tiptoeing.
Yeah.
These are not cars that you want to have out on the rain, like Jonathan, like we've seen in the Trans Am races. Sometimes the Trans Am mechanics will pull 2 plugs just to give them less power, because it's so hard to put the power down in these conditions. And if you do just slightly give too much power, you just lose all grip and you just start spinning, which might have been the case for Hannafin.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, these cars too. I mean, we talk about our Trans Am, but these cars have got equally powerful V8 engines, a lot of them. Now we're looking at this 19B, and I'm trying to look down. I've got 19A in front of me, but I can't find 19B.
19B is a De Tomaso Pantera of Anthony Lisa. This is just off the top of my head. They run a patent shop called Patented out of, I think, the Phoenix, Arizona area, but they usually race with us on the West Coast, but they were just with us a couple weeks ago at Summit Point. They run the Norma and this Pantera, but look at that thing. It is a beautiful Pantera. In fact, a couple years ago at Auto Club, I made I've always been looking for a carbureted big V8 to shoot the carburetor with a GoPro and shoot. And so I synced it up where there's a carburetor shot of, you can see the butterflies, and then you can see the front of the car. So if you check that out, I think it's, if you go to our YouTube page, it's Pantera at Auto Club Speedway. You're going to be able to see how the linkage in the carburetor works. So it's really cool.
Good knowledge, and great to, like you say, pretty rare to see a Pantera, right?
Yeah.
That's what took my eye immediately. I was like, what's that?
Oh, no.
That's our car.
No, that's the Mooney car. Oh, dear.
That's the Mooney car, and he's
coming
pulling
out of
over
8,
there. Oh, I hate
going
to
into
see
9.
that.
Yeah, man.
Now there's our leader, Paul Toombs, in a new car to him. He's had it for about 2 seasons now. Bought it from Shannon Ivey, and that is a Penske prepared Shannon kind of modeled that after one of the Penske Camaros from back in the day with a few slight modern improvements on it. But that is a true kind of TA class Group 6 car. which is really cool to see. And he, like I said, he's from England, so this is nothing to him.
Yes, exactly. Well, he's going to win in Watkins Glen. That's going to be a nice little accolade to take home, that's for sure. By the way, quick shout-out, talking to Group 6, to Scott Borchetta, recovering still from his injury from Road Atlanta, but putting on a fantastic event a couple of weeks ago for Trans Am, a few weeks ago now, a few months ago now. But, well done to Scott. Hopefully he'll be back in the seat and back in his Group 6 Corvette soon. Get well soon, my friend.
Yes. The big Machine Music City Grand Prix in Nashville, my hometown. Such a fun event. So cool to have him there. You got to hang out with Mario Andretti and Scott Borchetta at the same time. That had to be really cool.
Oh, very cool. Especially as he was complimenting his nephew on his good commentary.
Yeah.
So that was pretty cool.
Look at the fogs rolling in now.
Again.
Oh, yeah, here we go
The drone is up in the clouds.
Well, fog's not a problem. I mean, it's when it starts raining and lightning that it becomes a little bit of a hamperer to get up in the air. But these pilots that we've got are excellent. They really are. They do a hell of a job. I mean, think about it. They're not just flying. They're actually covering the race. Look, pretty cool.
I feel really terrible for Rick Mooney. I'm sure that's not what he wanted to happen. Bad conditions, and there are a few what we call weepers there at turn 8 that go across the track right on the apex. That might be what happened. But his crew at Stuart Black and out of Iowa, I believe, really do some great work. So that car will not be out for very long, knowing Stuart Black and everything. But you can see some of the little weepers and some of the standing water there. And if you get up on the curbs, it's even worse.
I was going to say the gators typically have a bunch of water in them. So if you get up on that and then a painted surface, it's very easy to get loose.
Well, coming up on the checker, John.
Yeah, I'm going to say, to be honest, if you're in the area, you'll know how heavy the rain has been overnight and over the last few days. I saw pictures of Pennsylvania this morning, and it was flooded to all heck. So here we go, into Customers Bank corner. And the last turn 11, here they come. And it's the Englishman, Mr. Toombs, Paul Toombs, in his Chevrolet Camaro SS from 1967, taking the checkered flag here at the famous Watkins Glen, as so many before him have done, as we celebrate the Dick Mooney race, the Memorial Dick Mooney race for Group 6 and 12A. Sadly, unfortunately, the Mooney car not making it to the finish, but he's parked it up quite rightly. And Rick Mooney had a little spin and touched the wall. So therefore, August moves up in the 199 to second place, and Shadle goes to third. Ziza, Ortman just behind them. But a good start to the day, and once again, my thanks to Cord Kistholt for coming in to the for coming into the booth. Get that car fixed, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah, hopefully I'll still come up and say hi, but hopefully it'll be out on track.
There you go. Well, listen, we'll take a short break from Watkins Glen, but we're up and running, which is good to see. We've got the fog just clearing up. The rain's still around, but we are racing here at the Glen. Join us after this break. Well, as you can see, welcome to our live stream of the Speed Tour 2023, Watkins Glen. And as you can see, we have a host of MGs. And the reason for that is this is the Collier Cup, the annual all-MG feature race that honors Sam and Miles Collier, who helped shape the amateur motorsports here in the USA. And, of course, the future, therefore, of Watkins Glen as well. And in 1985, at the blessing of Miles Collier Jr., SVRA established the Collier Cup. And we celebrate that legacy today with a host of MGs. And I'm delighted to say I've got an MG expert, but more than that, I've got the actual Grand Marshal of Watkins Glen this weekend, and a man who has literally been to most, if not all, of the Watkins Glen events since 1948, when he was just a tiddler of, 8 years old. Bill Green has joined us here in the booth. And Bill, thank you, first and foremost, for being our Grand Marshal this weekend. But what an honor to have you here, and what an encyclopedic knowledge, just listening to you off air, we've got. Tell us, first of all, about the Collier Cup, if you can.
Well, there's 2 Collier Cups. There's an SVRA one, and then there's an SCCA one. But we'll turn back a little bit farther to 1948. Miles and Sam came to Watkins Glen with their MGs, and they joined SCCA right there in the old Jefferson Hotel lobby, so they could run. So they managed to race in the 1948 race and finish fairly well. And then in '49, Sam drove Briggs's supercharged MG, which Heck Cassan drove in 1948, and Miles brought the Arden Alligator and raced it.
What's an Arden Alligator?
Well, the car started out as a Riley.
Okay.
And it ran an ARCA. And then eventually, it did not become it was a nickname, but it was a Ford Riley engine, had a Ford engine, flathead, And so it raced as a Riley in ARCA, and then the Colliers had it, and they had it in a garage down in Florida, and they after the war they built it up as the Arden Alligator, and it was red in 1949, and so Miles drew a fairly good grid spot. You realize in those days there was no official practice because you could close the roads only one day. But you could race with the seat of your pants if practice at night or during the day in traffic like they used to do in the mini.
Yes, that's right.
And so anyways, they got off. He had a poor start. But anyways, that year you had a mandatory pit stop. You could just go put your fuel hose in there and then take off again. Well, anyways, Miles had gotten up there pretty good, and Briggs had the Ferrari that Sam would be killed in or die later that day to race. And it was quite a contest for a while, and as they got down to halfway through the race, Miles pitted and got away, and then eventually caught up with Briggs toward the very end, and they went at it, and they came around on the last lap, and down they came Subin Street Hill to Milliken's Corner and through, rounded the turn on the 4 corners, and right in front of the post office, Miles went right by Briggs and won the 1949 Watkins Glen Sports Car Grand Prix.
Yeah, and I was just reading up. I got some notes here. Talking of MGs, they finished 3rd through 10th in the 48.
They sure did.
So MG was popular, or was really making a name for itself here in the USA. Yeah. I know, obviously, the brand from the UK. I've seen them a million times, but I hadn't realized just how post-war how popular they had become as a racing, car.
Cameron Nargensinger had an MG. The Colliers brothers had an MG. There was Denver Cornette had an MG, and so did Otto Linton. It was a J4 with a blower, and you could hear him for miles away.
That's awesome. So we've got Andrew Moore in an MGB out there leading in Group 3, the beautiful green MGB. I actually saw Andrew just Friday night at the downtown parade. Longtime racer here with us in vintage racing, and in that true to form British Racing Green. Then behind him is Richard Zepkowski in an MG Midget. Got a pass on Dave Nicholas, one of your friends, one of the Bark Boys. And speaking of the Bark Boys, I saw that Joe Turno now has his own brick in the Walk of Fame here in downtown Watkins Glen.
We put him in this year. That was a 3-year delay due to COVID.
Yeah.
All right.
All 6 of those guys, individuals, Joe Turno and Smith went in. They're Bark Boys.
That's cool. So they're all coming into turn 8. There's a big group of them coming into turn 8 right now, but there is Richard Zepkowski, beautifully prepared MG Midget with that chopped racing windshield that was an option back in the day for the MGs.
See, one of the cars is missing in this race is 029, which belonged to Spanky Smith, and Bob Booker drove this. And in 1957, he won the Seneca Cup, but in 1958, he won the Seneca Cup in the Allard again. And then, as John Duvall said in his article, he says, then Rapid Robert rode again. He and Sherm Decker, which were good buddies, both cars were tuned by Sherm Decker, went at it and came out of the last turn side by side, and they raced clean, but Booker beat him. And Mark Booker's here, his son.
Oh, that's cool.
And you know, Joe Turno at one time owned 029.
Yeah, I believe that car was the last car to ever win on Sunday at Lime Rock.
Probably.
Because they don't race on Sundays at Lime Rock anymore. As we look at this beautiful MGA twin cam.
Now, why did they do the twin cam? Is that sort of not unique, but was that a sort of a? Well, you don't see that.
You don't see many MGA twin cams, especially racing. I think they only made 99 coupes in the twin cam, but it was just a little bit more power, and that's where technology was going in racing back in the late 50s. So they thought, well, this is gonna be our twin cam version. But to be honest, a lot of people complained about its reliability. Now, the real good engine builders, the really good mechanics would say, no, if you tune it right and you do everything right and you maintain it right, you're going to get a lot more reliability out of it. So it's a big fight with the MG guys, because here's another MGA that is not a twin cam of Dayton Nicholas, who we were speaking of earlier. And I think that car belonged to Joe Turno also, didn't it? The Honeybee?
I think so, yeah.
Bill, I got a question for you. I was absolutely stunned, and I continue to be every time I come to this event, with the amount of people. It seems like the entire village town of Watkins Glen comes out to the reenactment. Has it always been that way?
It has.
Always been that popular?
If you were down there in the days they ran through town, it was easier to go around Watkins Glen because it took you a long time to come down Main Street.
Amazing.
And the nice part about it was at night or during the day when there was no races, you go around to the garages and the gas stations where these cars were being worked on, ready for the race on Saturday. And Smalley's garage was the place to be first.
Right. On Franklin Street,
48, they inspected them in each garage. But after that, the Mecca shifted to Smalley's garage until after 1961. Then they come up on the hill and the tent, but not in the what today is the surface garage. It was the Kendall Tech Center. That's where you tech your cars.
So where did all the popular drivers, I mean, the Seneca Lodge is kind of steeped in history, but was that the place and always is?
Seneca Lodge was one of them. Cunningham's took over the Colonial Motel right across the street from the Ford garage, and the Glen Motor Inn, and if hotels were full, there was what they call tourist homes. Today, you go and rent a room and something. And also in the outward way to Ithaca and Geneva and Corning and Elmira, Horseheads, and even further away.
Yeah, we're staying in Corning ourselves, so yeah,
sure.
I can totally understand that. It's a good little run through the countryside as we take a look at more of our lovely cars. Ben, I know you're chomping at the bit to talk.
Taz Squire in a Group 3.
Yep, 25A in fifth place.
MGB Roadster, a later model MGB Roadster. And then I love this beautiful car in second place right there in the shot, that MGTF. That 55A is Doug Faust in an MG Midget. And then right behind him in that MGTF is Glenn Moore.
Yes.
See, also, along with the Grand Prix, they had a Concours d'Elegance.
Yeah.
And for 4 years, it was in the parking lot of the Glen. Got so big, then they went to the Schuyler County Fairgrounds for many years, and 1 year down on Clute Park, and then back up in on the county fairgrounds. And one time they were up here on the second circuit. So, but you got to see MGs, you got to see all kinds of cars. And of course, in 1951, the car that we had down there, the experimental car that Harley Earl brought, which was on the grass down there, along with a 1953 Corvette. And but that was where the idea for Corvette came from. It was the year he came. He drove around the circuit, and he says, I don't see any sports car. Briggs wasn't going to build a car until 1952. But the funny part, they got it coming down the hill and right almost down where the gas station is. They were going counterclockwise. That car quit. The LeSabre quit. They had to push it down. But anyways, his idea was carried on back to Detroit, and by 1953, there were some built. And Nick Fraboni, who had arranged all that at Glen Chevy, called out there and wanted one of those Corvettes to lead the concourse, and he got an answer, no. So Nick went out there, and he went to the same place again, and they got a no, but he went over to Harley Earl's office, and Harley wasn't there, but there was a gentleman with him, and he says, tell me about it. It was with Harley, and he told him what he wanted it for, and he reached over and picked that telephone up, dialed up a number. When he hung it up, he says, you got one.
I love stories.
And that came through their shipping to up to up Lake Erie there. I'll get it. Buffalo.
Yeah.
That was the main distributor area, and there was a guy assigned to it, and he drove it. And it led the Concours d'Elegance on the main street from the fairgrounds, and there were two saddle horse guys. One was Mr. Stooks. The other one was my stepfather's father, Walter Ganung. They were on saddle horse, and they escorted it all the way up through.
That's cool.
Yep.
So you could almost argue that the beginnings of the Corvette were here.
It was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing.
The idea officially was germinated right here, and it was also either on Nick's front porch, or down at the garage, or up to Warren Clute's party one night. Somewhere's in there that all came together.
Well, we might get you to tell us that story again, because, of course, we've got a celebration of 70 years of Corvette coming up later in the day, but we're celebrating the Collier Cup right now, which is all MGs, and I'm delighted to have Bill Green, our current Grand Marshal here, and, of course, Ben Sissel, who is an absolute lover of this MG mark.
You can see he's got the no headlight rims there, Mark Brando, who was at Lime Rock last weekend for the MG celebration, and I think a TC or a TD, and he's the 106. My friend Carl George, Chief, out of Zapata Racing, had to go home. He was here earlier in the week in the 107 MGA, but he had some problems with some piston rings, which is pretty common in the MG. But the MGA just has some of the prettiest body lines. He had a great time at Mark in the 106. With his wife going through the downtown parade, and she was having a ball in the passenger seat, just waving at everybody, and just celebrating the history of MG and the history here at Watkins Glen. There's our leader, Andrew Moore.
Yeah, Andrew Moore leading, as he has right there. Zabowski in second place, and Holiday. How do you say it?
Holiday?
Yeah.
So there's the white flag. Holiday is in the
right,
twin cam, yes.
Okay, cool.
I believe
White
that's
flag
how you
out
say
then,
it.
yes. And coming down the main straight. By the way, shout out to the cameraman. Look how close we're getting to these cars here at Turn 1, at the Mission Foods Turn 1. We can basically see their eyes. It's fantastic. Look at that. Now they're showing off, though. I've said it.
Yeah. I love it, though. You got to like that. So that's a later model MGB. You can just tell by the taillights. You can tell by the door handles on the MGBs. Just like in any other manufacturer, they make what some people call improvements, but then It seems like the earlier models, like with the Mini Coopers or the BMW 2002s, the MGBs, the rounded taillights are the ones that are the more sought after.
Well, this is the final lap of the Collier Cup for 2023. Once again, MG counted 100 years of MG. Think about that, guys. A complete century of making these wonderful cars. And they've had so many different models of MGs and ownerships over those years. Eventually sold to the Chinese, in fact. But they keep making those beautiful cars. And, yeah, they've been true to the mark. And it's great to see and great to celebrate, too.
You know, the first Collier Brothers Memorial Trophy race was held in 1954, and Gus Ehrman won that. And that still runs today. And then in 1958, the Collier Cup SVRA was done. And Joe Tierno happened to win it. Now, this is not the overall cup. This is when they vote. They vote right after that. And so several of the other fellas have won that by being voted, but the overall one is another trophy for the, which eventually, and also Denver Coronet won, was awarded that by votes in the TC, which he rolled over into the Glen. They said, "All right, is he all right?" And he said, "Blank, blank, you roll this over, I'm all right." And he had 2 bent wheels. He borrowed one from Briggs Cunningham. He had his spare. Went on to finish 9th overall.
Wow, great story. Again, you're listening to Bill Green, the Grand Marshal and the true historian of Watkins Glen. Since 1948, they've been running cars here in this part of the world, in the Finger Lakes, and long may it continue. And we're delighted to be here today to celebrate the Collier Cup. And we've got the Governor's Cup coming up, and we've also got, of course, TA2, Current Day Trans Am 2, our big headline event coming up. But here's your leader and winner coming to the last corner, Customers Bank, and taking the wheel very nicely. And the conditions not very easy for these cars. And there's the checkered flag, though. Moore wins it, Holiday in second place, and it looks like Nicholas is going to take third at the finish. But a strong lead, and good job done.
Waving to the cameras there at Mission Foods Turn 1. We did have Richard Zipkowski go off track just outside of the Big Machine Vodka Spike Coolers inner loop. But another great Collier Cup here. Unfortunately, it seems like it keeps raining on Sundays when we're here. Last year we had the Bugatti, as you remember, and the Collier Cup and the Governor's Cup all in the rain.
Listen, I'm telling you, when you see what's going on around us in Pennsylvania and New York to the east, and very close racing in the closing stages.
We could have a twin cam versus a regular.
Well, this is for the podium.
16:22 as Dave Nicholas hangs it out. Yeah, this is for the podium. Let's see who's the faster A. You can see Dave Nicholas's has the later MGA with the 2 headlights.
Here we come, coming to the last corner then, Customers Bank, and it's second and third. Very close indeed, just what we wanted, and looks as though Holiday's going to hold on in that beautiful twin cam car. And he's just got take the checkered flag, and he's got it, and that's how it's going to finish. Holiday will be second, and David Nicholas, though, in the 76, pushing him all the way to the finish, just what we wanted to our finish here in the Collier Cup. My thanks to Bill Green coming in and the Grand Marshal this weekend. I'm sure we'll speak to you later. We're going to get some Trans Am action coming up soon. And my thanks again to both Ben Sissel and to Bill Green coming in here. And we'll take a short break from the action here in the Collier Cup. Stay with us on our live stream. More action to come, and we'll be live on MAV TV.
Yes, I won't venture far away. I'll be out here.
So then, as the cars head back to their garages, we'll get ready to show you some highlights of that wonderful Collier Cup. And here they are. So we got underway, and immediately Andrew Moore taking the lead in his MGB. And we also got the 74 in action, Richard Zabowski in the midget. And then the beautiful 51 of Jim Holliday, who had a real battle on his hands in that MGA twin cam right at the end there. We also saw some nice moves from the 55A of Doug Faust in the midget, and that beautiful number 56. Probably my favorite out there, going about his pace there. Glenn Moore in the Roadster MGTF. But the winner was Andrew Moore, taking the checkered flag. So that concludes our Collier Cup. We'll have more from Bill Green later in the day, but we turn our attention in a moment to the big muscle cars of America. Trans Am coming your way. Stay with us here. It's a little bit dreary here at Watkins Glen, but I'm sure it'll brighten up. And the racing, though, will be just as exciting as ever. We'll take a short break here from the Glen. Join us after this.
Outside my window here at the media center, and the big machine vodka spike coolers feature
Welcome to the Big Machine Vodka Spike Coolers TA2 series here at Watkins Glen. Big stories here, Jonathan. I hope you're paying attention because this is going to be a little bit crazy today. The weather is definitely iffy, and if you know anything about Watkins Glen International, it's like a microclimate up here. It changes. Connor Zilic on pole because we had to abort qualifying yesterday, and it went by practice times. You can see he's on the Pirelli slicks, the P0 slicks. But the other story is going to be who figures out the defrosting of the windshield. So you can see he's going like with the 80s rear window defroster here up in the front. Then we come over here to Nitro Motorsports, and he's got the windshield wiper. He's showing us the windshield wiper. And right now the wiper's working, Connor Zilic. So he's in this beautiful number 7 silver hair. Then we've got the Franklin Road Apparel, Nitro Motorsports, Brent Cruz here in second, running the slicks. So going into turn 1, these two may be looking for grip here at Mission Foods turn 1 because right behind them, Thomas Annunziata is on the reins. And you can tell, we're going to be able to tell by the images, the slicks have the yellow Pirelli P0 and the wets have just a black sidewall, basically. And that's the best way to tell. Now, being teammates, I looked at Nitro. Well, let's show this. So Brent has a bunch of blowers that are going to be pulling the heat up from the engine bay and blowing on here, and then he's got a tube here. So we're going to look and see who has the best wipers, who has the best anti-fog system, as I try to move around Ricky Brooks here. Now, Thomas Annunziata, he is running the wiper. We can see a bunch of blowers here, PVC pipes just spray painted, connected to blowers with the, he's running the reins. Celix is saying that they've got it figured out, and we could see from last year's Justin Marks win here yesterday, they're running RC airplane jet engines basically up. You can see these tubes here. This is probably the best view we have here on this car. This is Rafa Matos, TA2 champion 2 times over. He's running 2 different blowers up here. They've got the peel-offs, but they're running the different windshield wipers on the outside. Adrian Lostowski, very good qualifying here, doing really well. And then we've got Austin Green here with the 3-Dimensional Services Group running these big jets. I'm trying to find where the first Cope cars are. Adam Andretti here doing really well. All right, well, ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor to be able to say the most famous words in motorsports. Drivers, start your engines! Were we on time? Yeah, I'm going to be busy.
Well, that beautiful sound of the engines roaring into action as we're on board with Adrian Lostowski and the Hawk Performance on board. We'll take you through all those. Get well soon, Scott Borchetta. Everybody's saying that because he got injured, of course, at Road Atlanta. I'll be joined in the booth today by the one and only Scott Goodyear. Delighted to have him on board. And we are about to go racing in TA2. Can't wait for this one. We welcome our viewers on MAV TV across the United States and around the world. I'm Jonathan Green, and alongside me, Scott Goodyear. You join us here at Watkins Glen in what could be one of the most interesting races of the year because we have been struck by weather throughout the weekend. Luckily, not as bad as some people further to our east and west. Thankfully, Pennsylvania absolutely flooded, New York City, but here in the Seneca Lakes or the Finger Lakes of Watkins Glen, we've got rain and we've had rain, and you can see it's still wet out there, which also makes things interesting. But the other big story is we weren't able to run the full qualifying yesterday simply because it got too wet and too foggy. They were due to go out. We did get one group out, and they did their qualifying session, but the second group didn't get to go out. So what we decided to do was take the first practice practice sessions, and that's how we got this grid, and here it is. So Brent Cruz alongside Connor Zilic are two young guns going head-to-head. Can't get any better than that. Rafa Matos, two-time champion, and Annunziato is row 2. Austin Green and Lostowski on row 3. Robert Noaker the third, and Adam Andretti on row 4. Boris Said Jr. on row 5 with Evan Slater. Great to have Evan Slater, the 17-year-old, back after his crash at Detroit. Goitberg, Mock, Mayer, Hearn, the Australian, Caleb Bacon, then Dylan McAvern already out in the historics already earlier in the weekend on row 8. Then it's Thomas Merrill, and that's the big story. Thomas Merrill, second in the championship, and our current champion lining up all the way down on row 9. Jade Buford alongside him, Doug Peterson, former Trans Am champion, and Josh Sargé. Then on row 11, welcome back, Michelle Abate, back from her injury, and great to see her back. Barry Bowes, Eric Caton, and John Weisberg. Then Parker DeLong, Tom Sheehan, Cale Phillips, and Keith Prochuk. Bruce Nesbitt and Doug Winston, huge field once again here. Jim Gallagher and Bruce Raymond, they're on row 16. Richard Rook and Ty Young. Chris Durbin, who had an oil issue that curtailed some of the practice earlier in the weekend, so not a lot of running time this weekend for these guys. Thad Moffitt is way down on the 18th row, and Luke Rumberg. So we're going to expect to see Scott Goodyear, a lot of guys coming through, and especially I'm thinking Thomas Merrill as we look at some of the oddballs. Here's Austin Green with our three-dimensional services group.
My mind right away, Jonathan, is the unknowns and patience. The unknown because the guys weren't on the track yet this morning. It has been changing. We watched some of the SVRA stuff running earlier this morning, and some of the guys were doing a good job. The guys that got on the curb, on the exit, picked the back end up and swung the car around and ended up into the barrier. These guys are professionals. They know better, but sometimes you're in a bit of a hurry, and that happens. A car will slip and slide around, and the big thing is patience, because even though you're back at 18th, a lot's going to go on. It's a long race today. There's going to be yellows. Guys are going to make mistakes, and you don't get it all done the first lap of the first turn.
Well, we'll be on board with Jay Buford in the Big Machine Vodka Spike Coolers on board. We also saw the ASIO data of Barry Bowes. So we'll be bringing you every angle we can. We'll also be on board with Evan Slater for Showtime, the Franklin Road team. Great to have him back. He's been out since Detroit, so that's June. We were both at that event, and so it's a long time out for young Evan Slater, but he says he feels absolutely great and fighting fit. He's been doing some track time, but only in a road car, and we'll also be on board with Rafa Matos in the three-dimensional services group on board as well. And so, an important race for Rafa Matos, who is chasing down the title himself. At the moment, it's Brent Cruz who leads the way with 7:74. Thomas Merrill is second with 7:49. And then Rafa Matos is third. Connor Zilic is fourth. So I've got my eyes on this man, Connor Zilic, who for the first time in a long time starts on the front row. And I say that because he's been pole at Detroit, won that from the back because he had a technical issue, did the same at Nashville and won that. Incredible stuff. But the Big Machine Vodka Spike Coolers TA2 Series, round 10, about to get underway. And Scott, I know you love to see these. You watch FR and F4 youngsters coming through the ranks, following in your footsteps to your great career. But, I mean, think about these two youngsters now finally getting a chance to go head-to-head in these conditions at the famous Glen.
Well, this really is a training ground, as we've talked about before in other shows for NASCAR, isn't it, really? Because NASCAR comes here and you get to run these cars at this racetrack, but now you get a chance to run these cars in the wet. So you're learning something that might have something valuable to it further down the road. But the key thing for me right now is I'm watching this track. It's dried out this morning. We had a big delay this morning, obviously, because of fog. Some are starting in rains. Some are starting on dries.
Well, that was my next question.
And that's going to be the question for me, because it's so difficult. Do you go with the slicks and then I talk about patience before. You've got the slicks on, the track's not dry. You're watching people drive away from you. You know how hard that is?
Yeah.
And then you get anxious, and then you push the car, and then you make a mistake or you slide off and do damage, and you've ruined the car for the rest of the race. Conversely, you got the wet tires on. Man, you look like a hero for a little while until it starts to dry out. So this is what's going to be interesting. Now, I came over here from race control. There's a little bit of the moisture, and this track's big enough that it can start to rain back over in the boot section, but maybe not in turns 1 and 2. This is, I said earlier, it's the unknowns. We don't know what's going to happen here, and it's going to play chance to everybody, but patience is the big key.
This is why I got you here, because I can ask you these questions. You won here for Brumos. What would you do in these conditions if you were out there today?
Well, when I ran here a couple of times with the old Audi Quattros, the factory Audis, they were very cool. All the Quattro drive, you had lots of grip. And now you see them going down the boot. They did the first short lap here. Now they're going to go down the boot, so all the drivers get to see the track conditions down in that area there. But when I ran here with the Daytona prototype cars, you've got 4,800 pounds of downforce. So it certainly helps if the track's wet. It certainly helps if there's some water going across the track, which this track gets when it starts to get really wet. So that's what we'll be watching out for. I'll be watching to see how much rain comes down. I can tell you at that point where those little rivers are.
Yeah.
These guys don't have all that downforce, almost 5,000 pounds of downforce. So like I always say, it's up to the driver in these cars, because these things are just brute horsepower and raw driving talent.
4 rounds to go in the 2023 championship, and this could be a pivotal moment, an hour of racing. 100 miles ahead of us, but these conditions are tricky. Guys, I've just found out, silver hair, both young drivers, that's Connor Zillage on the front row and Ben Mayer, his teammate, are on slick tires. We found out that the Cope cars are running wipers on the inside of the windshield. Good idea. And Scott Lagacy's team, SLR, has film on the inside of the windscreen designed for shower doors. Go figure. The innovation of some of these guys.
And I'm laughing at that because when I ran here with the Audi Quattros, on the one team was Hans Stuck and Walter Roll. I was driving with Hurley Haywood. Hans Stuck had a stick with a rag on the end of it because the inside wouldn't clear enough, so he'd be using the stick to clean the inside of the windscreen.
That is brilliant. Well, as you saw, the Honda Civic is our pace car, and when the lights go out on that pace car, that tells us we are going racing. It's a 30-lap race or 100 miles. It's going to be intense. We're going to be on board with Rafa Matos and the Three Dimensional Services Group and several other cars as well. But Connor Zillage will lead the field to green. On the slicks, he's going to have to be very careful in that first lap. I'm not quite sure, and I'll find out from Ben when I can, what Brent Cruz behind him is running. But Brent Cruz, the man in second place, is in second place. Sorry, the man who is in second place on the grid is leading the championship, and it's welcome back to Thomas Annunziata in third. He is due a win. The green flag waves as we head down towards Mission Foods, turn 1 for the first time at the Glen, round 10 of the Big Machine Vodka Spike Coolers Trans Am Series. Zillage taking the whole shot, but a great start for him. Annunziata, he takes second place, and on board now with Rafa Matos in third. Rafa looking for a way past Zillage. Zillage struggling definitely on those slick tires early on.
And this is the section here because it's so slippery. Anyways, even when it's dry, the car where we are now gets up, it goes light a little bit. So if you don't have the rain tires on, you're really fighting that car.
Single file start due to the rain, obviously. That's why we have the single start, because usually we're side by side, and you know that as the race director. Good decision, yeah?
Excellent decision, and you want to get through the first turn and the first lap. That's what all these professional drivers are looking for. And the key thing, you'll see them run over the curbs if the curb's on the inside just a little bit, but on the exit of the track, they need to stay off those curves. Anything that's painted is super slippery. Now we see what's going on here with Austin Green, running the high side, which sometimes they call the rain line, because he's searching for grip.
Yeah.
He can feel his car does not have the grip as it's set up on the rain line. You'll see different lines happening here right away.
Yeah, Austin Green qualified well, but he's taking his time, gingerly going through. But no surprise then as we go back on board with Adrian Lostowski, the Hawk Performance man from the local area. And Adrian got the Vipers on, so you can see there's definitely drizzle out there, but the track is very wet indeed. You can see people sliding. And Scott, the undulations here, where would you be worried about where the weepers stroke water would be?
And they're coming through, as we see this right now, we're going to end up coming up the hill to 9, coming through 8, the entrance to 8. Sometimes there's something there. Sometimes if it rains a lot, there's something in the bottom of 8 to 9, which we don't see right now. And they should be good all the way through. They're coming out of 1 towards 2. Sometimes there's some moisture coming along that area there. Got to be cautious going through the S's. The next thing that I remember about this racetrack is turn 5 and then going down to 6. We've had a lot of incidences in turn 6, not only just because of the drivers competing and driving hard, but because the track is very difficult there, downhill, off camber. But you know what I always think about these, and I only drove these cars a couple of times, Jonathan. I mean, just some great racing going on early and patience being played, is that you're on a racetrack that has not a whole lot of grip right now, and you're trying to put the foot on the gas to get the run, but your right foot is also traction control with these cars. Because
exactly.
Right now you're anxious, but you don't want to start spinning those tires.
Thomas Annunziata picking up the lead at 2:08.957 in his first lap. He's finding the grip. There's Nathan Hearn. First look at him. the young Australian. But look at him fighting the wheel there, literally going from side to side. And I don't know whether he's trying to get temperature in or he's just trying to hold it onto the road. But we're on board with the Q3 Racing Nathan Hearn from Australia, who's had a sensational rookie year so far. Perhaps set his expectations a bit higher than he expected, because he came in last year at COTA and immediately got 4th place. But from there on in, it's been up and down for him this year. Look at these conditions. This is so interesting to see how Zilic is dealing with it on those slick tires, but he's still out there and he's still going well. How about this? Caleb Bacon here in the 18. He's one of the new men to the series, and look at him all over Connor Zilic, the young 17-year-old.
But look at the gap that Borisset Jr. actually pulled once he got by, because obviously his car is working well. You know, when you have a name that your father's very famous and did such a great job, boy, you got a lot of pressure on you. And he's a young man that's a rising star, there's no doubt about it. But his car is good because he's got that gap. Now look at him running that high line we talked about before. It's a bit of a rain line, get some grip. And then the back end, you can see the back end sliding out just a little bit there. He's off the normal line because he's trying to get power down. There's more grip where there's no rubber, and that's why he's in the middle of the road.
And how long before you get a drying line? Because I always love races like this, because once you get a dry line, the guys on slicks are happy, the guys on wets are not, because they're trying to keep those grip, keep the tire tread, if you like, on the wet tires, which will deplete and fall apart eventually as the track dries. And if the conditions stay constant and we don't get any more rain, it's going to be the likes of Zilic and those that have chosen to go on the slicks. They have the advantage.
It really will, and with the exception of the unknown that we talked about before, we start to get a sprinkle at some point throughout this event, then obviously it comes back into play. You're waiting for the track to dry again. But, you know, right now it looks like it's cleared. The cloud cover has certainly lifted here since we came here this morning. But this is what I'm talking about before. You've got to be so gentle on the throttle with the pedal right now, because you start taking those rear tires off when it does start to have dryness out there and you have nothing left to run with those things. That's where the guys with the patience are. In this situation, I always tell my drivers in F4 and F3 and FR, be like Scott Dixon. And just, if you can be like him.
I'd love to be like Scott Dixon.
Yeah, and have patience and make the car work for you and take what the car's offering you right now, then you'll be golden by the end of the day.
Nice move here by Nathan Hearn on Lostowski, and you can see him fighting the wheel, but through goes the Cube 3 man from Australia. He is used to these sorts of conditions, does a lot of racing. He's a Formula 5000 and Trans Am champion in Australia, but he's just got past Lostowski, who, as you can see, 146 miles an hour. They're not holding back by any means at the moment. Our first look at Andretti also chasing down, as Adam Andretti currently in 11th place, chasing down Nathan Hearn and Lostowski himself. But on board again with Evan Slater, the 17-year-old, back at the wheel since his long absence from Detroit. So we are underway here at Detroit, at Watkins Glen.
And Johnny, you were talking about speeds. That was only 10 miles an hour short of what they were generally doing, because usually going down the bus stop, it's about 157, 159 miles an hour. And the apex speed, I noticed, was only about 6 to 7 miles an hour slower. That tells me the track is starting to get some grip there. So the guys with the slicks, if it doesn't rain again, they're going to start to pay some dividends here shortly.
Now, one thing I need to explain, because if you didn't hear at the top of this, we went off practice times, not qualifying. We didn't get a full qualifying session in last night because of the rain and the weather and the fog. And therefore, oh, there's somebody going wide. That's a good example, as we were on board with Lostowski, of what can go wrong. Merrill, I was just about to introduce him, has got through on Barry Bowes by the look of things. Andretti's waiting to go past in the 41 car as well. Merrill getting sideways. And it's Goikberg, I think, who's just ahead of them. So it was Goikberg who was out of shape there. Evan Slater's in on the game too. Here's Barry Bowes in the ASIO Data car, the number 32. He's a little further down, but what great racing. And that was a mistake by Goikberg there for a moment, and that's allowed both Merrill to come through. So Merrill started 18th, and of course second in the championship. If you're wondering why he's so far back, it's because he had to start from his practice time, expecting to do qualifying, not worried about where he was. What's going on Merrill's car as well? Is that the wipe or a heater maybe?
A blower of some nature,
blower.
But you know what I'm noticing right now is everybody's getting a little bit more confident with the car, and you can see the car starting to twitch around because they're really starting to push the car. And interesting to see, like I said, if it rains again here shortly, then everybody that was a hero with these rain tires is going to start backing up.
So we're back on board with Barry Bowes, and you can see the concentration, visor up. He wears glasses as it is. so he feels more comfortable with that visor up, and of course he's not going to get wet because he's inside the cockpit, so he's fine. Here's our champion, Thomas Merrill. Really interesting to see how far he can get, because he's had to start from, 18th position, and now he's up to 11th already. You're watching the Trans Am Series, presented by Pirelli, live here on MAV TV. Scott Goodyear and Jonathan Green bringing you the action. We've had a lot of rain and a lot of bad weather in the lead up to this race, but we've got a cracking race for you, a drying track, some choosing wet, some choosing slicks, and it's quite a hodgepodge of different approaches to this race, but it's starting to get better in terms of the conditions, and that's really going to make things interesting here as this track dries out, Scott Goodyear.
The interesting thing is just to see how forceful these guys will be. And right now,
that's
with
Rafa for the lead.
There he goes. Experience and patience. He sat back there, didn't push it. So now he just needs to run clean laps, watch the weather conditions. And this track is big enough that it can be raining down in turns 1, 2, and 3 and dry down the other end. So your spotters are around the racetrack. They're starting to tell you what's going on. Obviously, you're watching the water coming on your windscreen at any given time also. Now that he's in the lead, he shouldn't have anything coming up in his windscreen because he's not getting the spray off the car in front. That'll be the thing that he will look at, and it will tell him how the conditions are out there.
Well, Rafa Matos is doing a good job. We're on board with him now in the three-dimensional services group. He's just taken the lead, and you can see the conditions, and Annunziata's staying with him. And look at these two pulling away from the rest of the field. It's like they're in their own race, because they two have both got the slicks on, and they're now starting to use them well as they come through the Big Machine Vodka Spike Coolers inner loop. And out they go, down to the outer loop and downhill towards the chute again. But these two have got it right. I think the choice was slicks, and that's the way to go, because the conditions aren't changing. But, of course, it could rain very soon indeed. Now down the hill they come and into the boot.
And balance of the car is so important here, and these guys are so good. You get down in there, you hear these guys rolling off the brake early and coasting into the turn. You don't want to force it like you would when the track is dry, because what ends up happening, you get that weight balance all wrong. So right now he's smooth on the gas. You can see he's just touching the gas. Once he feels confident the car's going to get a grip, then he'll start to squeeze the throttle.
Scott, how is the camber? This circuit is heavily cambered on the two corners down the chute and also in the boot. Can you, in the wet, can you use the camber to your advantage?
Well, you can see where we're going through right now. Yes, there's camber there, and that can certainly help. You want to be on the outside. This is the most difficult corner on the circuit, I think. It's downhill. It starts to roll off a little bit, and you feel that you got grip. You get to the apex right there, and yes, it looks like it gives you grip on the exit, but I don't know why, Jonathan. Cars just don't seem to have, and I think the grip at that point in time, and I think because you overload the outside front tire. So very easy to do when it's wet.
Well, as I mentioned, Thomas Merrill second in the championship, and of course Rafa Matos leading this race third in the championship. So we could have a real change around of the order here. Also, Brent Cruz obviously leading the championship in sixth position, taking his time, being very smart for a 15-year-old, but showing real maturity because he's not taking any huge risks, and he is still in the hunt in sixth place.
Interesting to see some people are staying directly away from the curb. Some people are using the curb. Did they slide mid-turn and end up on the curb on the exit? Like I said, in the rain, the exit curb is not your friend.
Yeah, no question about it. Dylan McAvern down in 12th position. Misha Goikberg in 13th at the moment. And Adam Andretti, who we just saw there, is in 14th position. Through comes Evan Slater in his new sponsorship there. Got a couple of new sponsors on the side of his Showtime car, so great to have him back, and we're on board with him now in the Franklin Road on board. He had a big crash at Detroit, got a concussion, but actually that wasn't the problem in the end. He found out it was almost 20 degrees, he told me, of one of the vertebrae in his neck got twisted, and now he's had the right adjustment, if you will, and since then, all of the problems he had have gone away. So doctor said, you're good, and away he goes. Boris Said Jr., how about this? The young Boris Said Jr., his dad just did his 100th Trans Am race yesterday. This kid's up to 4th.
Nice move, and he said, smart, little pressure on you when you've got a father that's got a famous last name.
Yeah. Well, the Said heads are well known here at Watkins Glen because he did many a great race here for NASCAR and in Xfinity. Barry Bowes bouncing through the bus stop in the Asio Data onboard, watching his yellow gloves go to work.
See, and he's down on the dry line. Some of those guys are still using that, what we call the wet line, the dry. Now, we look through down here in 6, you can see a dry line starting to form. So if we no longer have any more rain, what's going to end up happening is we're going to just turn around and see these guys with slicks start to gain some more time. And remember, this is not like Indy cars or GTP cars or anything of that nature. Well, and the pit stop, number one for fuel, but if you do have to come in, it's 5 lug nuts. It's not one center hub nut. So, I mean, there's 4 guys allowed over the wall, so you're going to run around, do one side. They got to come around, do the other side. It's going to take a while to get the tires changed over.
Austin Green, son of former Xfinity champion David Green, so another heritage to be looked after there. The flag's waving there to give them the warning, and I think this race is going to turn many times before we get to lap 30. Boris Said Jr., here he is, the highest he's been up in, I think, since he started racing in Trans Am. Back in the three-dimensional services group, having had 3 or 4 races with the Nitro Motorsports group. But the reason why he had to leave the team, or at least go and race with Nitro, is that they had several crashes at Detroit. You were there, and including Rafa Matos going off. That was his worst result, a crash at turn 1 at Detroit. And so Rafa trying to rebuild his championship. But this is great news for young Boris Said Jr., who is like a sponge at the moment, learning everything he can from the likes of Rafa Matos. Jay Buford now for the Big Machine Spike Vodka coolers. On board with him. And by the way, good to see Scott Borchetta and the Xfinity team that he runs getting through to the playoffs this weekend as well. So congratulations to that team. Jay Buford, though, going on and getting through on the 95. It looks as though he's going to make that move.
Yeah, it went and very smartly done. Got up beside him, presented himself so he had at least out of space in the corner there, and carries the speed through and gets the pass done. So that's a nicely done. Having patience and not rushing it and causing any damage or bumping into each other, as we say, door handle to door handle, and you're not disturbing your car and having anything bent fender-wise.
And Scott, I just want to introduce one of our top drivers who's not racing this weekend, but Tyler Casera joins us here in the booth, and I know you would love to be out there right now. This is just your kind of weather, isn't it?
This is my home track. I love these conditions at this track, just local track knowledge. I really wish I was out there, but yeah, it's amazing to see what these guys are doing, and these changing conditions are going to make for a really interesting race, I think.
What's the latest on you coming back? Because we need you back in the series.
Yeah, I'm working hard. I mean, I'm here, obviously, trying to beat on everybody's door, trying to get back in the seat. And,
Scott Goodyear knows all about that.
it's tough, as everybody knows, right? So I'm trying to do everything I can, doing some coaching and some driving, some other series and stuff. So just trying to stay sharp for the opportunity and,
well, guys,
be ready for it.
Right, guys, we're under caution now, and I'm not quite sure what the caution is yet, but we'll find out. But I want to ask both of you as racing drivers, how does this change your approach to a race like this, where we've started on wet, dry sort of situations, and it looks as though Annunziata's come straight into the pits. He was probably, I don't know if he's got a problem or not, but how would you approach this now?
Well, I mean, if you think that it's going to stay dry for the remainder of the race, this is the time right now to get in there and take the slicks on. We see people going through that right now. So, I mean, that's neat. But, it's interesting. You're saying, Tyler, that knowledge of this racetrack. Did you have a lineup at your door this morning when it looked like it was going to be wet and go, hey, man, come on, tell me what's going on around here?
Yeah, I had a few words of wisdom for people, for sure, and people were asking me. But, I mean, it is very tricky in these conditions, but this track is unique with the surface that it has, the pervious pavement where the water drains out of it, and it's got a really sharp aggregate, so it's got a lot of grip in the wet.
Well, you can still see the rain is falling. We're going to take a short break as well while we're under caution, but we're hearing from Tyler Casera and Scott Goodyear, so we'll take a break from the Glen. Join us after this.
Speed, endurance, desire. For 160 years, Motul has helped engines and drivers go faster, further, and stronger. Tested in the heat of battle, driven with passion, with one aim: to give you superior powertrain protection and performance. Motul.
As manufacturing problem solvers who navigate design complexity and compressed timing, the three-dimensional services group offers 7 facilities with over 500,000 square feet of dedicated, on-demand manufacturing floor space. Metal or plastic, we support a wide range of industries, from some of the world's best-known companies to startups. With unparalleled investment in leading-edge manufacturing technology and automation to keep all phases of a project in-house.
Welcome back to our coverage of the Trans Am Series presented by Pirelli. We're under caution here in our TA2 Spiked Coolers Vodka Trans Am TA2 race, and it's Matos who leads by 1.7 seconds over Annunziata, but Cruz, just watching, has made his way to the front as Zilich is up there, because here comes Matos. So, guys, it's all happening. Matos is in, he's changing to slicks as you'd expect. But guys, take us through what you would be doing.
Well, you see a mass of people coming in, making that changeover, and that means you're committed to that it's going to be a dry racetrack, and you know this racetrack better than anybody, and if it gets wet, it can be slippery. I've run it a couple of times here, but, there's not 1 inch of this racetrack that can be forgiving, because there's guardrails around this whole place.
Well, also, Austin Green's come in, and he's now waiting. This is awful. This is painful, isn't it?
Yeah, that's the tough part about the series, right? We don't do pit stops. It's a sprint race, and so these teams don't get a lot of practice doing pit stops and changing tires, so it makes kind of these conditions really difficult, and especially when you're a team that's got multiple cars and you've got to shuffle people through kind of one at a time, like you see here with the three-dimensional services group cars.
Yeah, this is not. Oh, now they've got to Austin Green just behind. Matos is out and running. They'll leave Austin right there because they've already started working on his car. Barry Bowes is in there. Caleb Bacon's in there. Here's Bowes working on his car. They've got a small team, and that's another side. You know this, Tyler, having worked with your dad and your uncle. You'd be putting them to pace, wouldn't you?
It would be really difficult right now with the 3 people that I had supporting my car. I think one of the keys here doing this under the caution, right, is these guys aren't going to go a lap down at this track. And in TA2, the way the rules are, if you go a lap down, basically you're getting put at the back of the lead lap every single caution we have. So there's really no chance to get back with the lead lap. And these guys are doing it at a really good time.
And, watching the pit stops, and obviously you look at these cars and makes you think about NASCAR. And these guys are not sliding around on their knee pads, getting around to the other side. I mean, it's not something they do a lot. It's not like they do it every race. So these guys are going around doing it slower. And to your point, good thing it's underneath yellow right now, because otherwise they'd be losing a lap for sure. Yeah,
we had a race at Lime Rock last year, actually, that I ran up front in, and we stayed on wet tires the entire time. And, it was such a short track, you went laps down.
You knew it was better to go and try and just hustle with it.
Let's head down to the pit lane. Ben Sissel for the latest.
Hey, thank you. I'm here at pit road. It has been very active. You can see some of the crews cleaning up some of the lug nuts. From just off the top of my head, the nitro cars, Thomas Annunziata, Darren Mock, and Michelle Abadi came in and went to our regular slicks, Pirelli P0 slicks. Then Keith Prochuk, he came in. Jim Gallagher came in. We've got Cale Phillips down there in the red car with Nitro Motorsports. He came in. Thomas Merrill is still out there on the reins. Then we had Barry Bowes come in and change to slicks. Luke Rumberg, Bruce Raymond, I believe, Caleb Bacon. So we're going green. So, Scott, I hope you can tell everybody what just happened with all these pit exchanges and tire changes. Back to you, gentlemen.
Well, some are leaving, I think, and getting ready for the start and feel very confident. And some are going, maybe I should have done it.
Yeah, exactly. Just a reminder, we're going green this lap, and it's going to be Connor Zilich leading the field from Brent Cruz, Austin Green, Nathan Hearn in 4th. Noah Aker up to 5th, and Rafa Matos down to 6th after that pit stop. Away we go then. Zilich heading down to Mission Foods turn 1. Austin Green jinking on the inside. Doesn't do it. Here comes Merrill as well. He's come into play in 7th place now. A brilliant run so far from Thomas Merrill from 18th on the grid, now up to 7th and back in the hunt.
Yeah, look out for Nathan Hearn right there in the Q3 Berryman car. I mean, he came from pretty deep in the field here, and I think he's up to 4th or something. So look for him to move to the front.
The one that's lost out is, of course, Boris Said Jr. He's had to come in, it looks like. But look at this, wheel-to-wheel racing. Austin Green makes his move.
And you see now the track is just starting to dry. You see a little hint of dryness there and some lightness coming up. So that tells you the track is going to continue to get better. See the guys starting to feel confident using the curbing on the inside right now. They won't use it on the outside, I'm sure, maybe throughout the whole event here, because it's still going to be slippery and wet. This is the corner, I don't know about you, Tyler, but I always found this, even running in the Audi Quattros and the GTP cars, 6 was, for me, was always the most difficult corner. You try to want to rush it, and it just doesn't grip.
There's really not any good references either getting in there. It's kind of the same with turn 9. It's all feel, and you just have to have the reps to do it, and consequences are big. But yeah, you want to rush it, it seems like, and making a little bit of a later apex helps you kind of get that run down towards the top.
Guys, is it just me, or is this just brilliant watching Nathan Hurn do his job? This is fantastic stuff. He gets past Austin Green, and look at him fighting that wheel. Oh no! The champion spins at the Glen. Merrill goes out of contention from 7th place, having done all the hard work. He spins round.
And
what a shame.
And pointed the wrong way, too.
I know. Lostowski on board with the Hawk Performance man as he tries to make his move too, this time on the 80.
Yeah, it looks like there's still a lot of moisture down at the curbs and kind of close to these apexes, so these guys are having to run a little bit offline, but you know, Zilich and Cruz, they had the advantage there before that caution of getting some experience, whereas these guys that just switched, they're having to figure it out.
Look at this, 5-way battle, Slater at the back of it, Andretti in the middle of it, Bose to the inside. Everybody looking and jostling for position. Great racing, and Richard Noaker the third, right in the middle of it in that number 80. They go past him. Slater's got past. So has Andretti. This is going to be a cracking race, guys. 10 gone of the 30. There's a long way to go in this, but now everybody's on the tyres that they want because they've had the choice to come in. And whoa, what was that in the background? Somebody's signage or some part of a car has come off.
Yeah, it looks like a front valance or something of that nature. That's a big enough piece that you'll probably end up seeing possible full course caution to get that picked up, because you run over that and you're going to have putting a tire down.
We had problems yesterday in the TA race with people running through the bus stop and picking up grass. It happened to Boris Said. He had a transition overheat for him, and there were several cars, including Dyson, that also picked up grass. So that's another factor that we've got to keep an eye out here, because the grass is very close, and if you just strip over it just at the bus stop there, it's easy to pick it up on the grill. That can overheat the car.
I mean, just from watching now, and you drive these cars recent, so you can tell us, but I'm watching these guys now. I mean, the confidence is there because they're driving the thing deep into the corners now. They're getting on the brakes where they were so hesitant before, and all of a sudden now power down. And I said to Jonathan before you walked in, you guys, I mean, your traction control is your right foot in these things, obviously, and this is coming into play right now. This is impressive.
Yeah, they're definitely starting to step up the throttle application and driving the brake zones deeper. We look at Connor Zilich, he's got the fastest lap of the race at a 156.0, which is about 5 seconds off of where he was in dry. So about 10 seconds quicker than full wet. So we're right in between here. These guys, I think, will just continue to see the lap times drop.
Now, this is really interesting. Connor Zilich, as you just mentioned, just did the fastest lap of the race, and he's got an advantage here because Cruz is having to keep one eye on trying to catch him and one eye on Nathan Hurn. And I would not want to be in second place like Brent Cruz right now, because Nathan Hurn does not hold back when it comes to racing. We've learned that this year, and Austin Green is due a win, and he's just behind him. So it's all happening here as we go back on board with Austin Green.
Yeah, just as I say that, Zilich's fast lap, he just clicked off 2.5 seconds faster in that last lap, so he's down to a 53.9. So he's getting really close to a full dry lap time around this track.
Well, it's definitely a dry line now, isn't it?
Yeah, you can see them being able to use the curbs a lot more than before, which obviously that's going to bring the lap times down for everybody.
McAvern's come into play, up to 5th place now. Andretti now up to 8th position. Lostowski just ahead of him. And Noaker still in the hunt, very much so.
And as we see the dry line widen out, you're going to see the ability for drivers to make more passes. And it's a little narrow right now, so going offline, you still got less grip, but it's going to widen out, and then we're going to be back to kind of a full dry running condition.
Next guy I'm going to keep an eye on is Rafa Matos, because you saw him take that break. Austin Green, who was behind him, is up to 4th, but Matos is still down in 12th, so I don't know if he had a problem or made a mistake, but Austin Green has fared well. Unfortunately, Rafa got some work to do.
Well, he passed 25 cars to get where he's at right now after that restart.
Yeah.
So that's pretty impressive. I definitely look for him to be a factor it's likely there's going to be another full course here at some point, and so that'll tighten everybody up, and it'll make it a really interesting race. Not that it's not already. It's exciting for sure here as we watch Nathan Hearn try to track down Brent Cruz.
You're listening to Tyler Casera and Scott Goodyear here in the booth here at the Glen. 12 of the 30 laps gone here in our Trans Am TA2 race.
So with these cars right now, I mean, you've got a lot of fuel on board. I mean, how much do these cars change when you start to burn off the fuel? Because I know in the single-seater cars, I mean, it starts to change. You start to work with the bars, and you have to change your driving style because you start to get a little bit of push, the oversteer. I mean, the fuel comes down. Does it change a lot with these?
The balance does change quite a bit. I mean, it's 150 to 175 pounds of fuel that you're going to burn through, and that's all hanging off the rear axle. So typically these cars, you start a little bit tight, meaning you got understeer, and as this race goes on, they'll free up and they'll definitely have to adjust kind of their driving style and even start to migrate brake bias, towards the front.
Yep. Yeah, it's always interesting. Like I said, I drove these things way early in my career, but it's interesting just to see what you're talking about right now because of all that weight. At least in the single-seater, we've got the weight just in the center because you're sitting on it, right? Yes. So that's a little bit different deal. Watching the speeds, and you were saying something about this a second ago, Tyler, that they're starting to really get up to where they were. They were really, I just saw that 160 miles an hour on that last lap going in the bus stop, which I think is exactly where these guys were running in qualifying from when I was watching. So they're right there, and I saw the apex speeds are pretty darn close. And yeah, these guys they're hitting it just like they were in a dry condition.
Well, two men on a strip right now are Rafa Matos and Thomas Merrill. Merrill in 16th position, and Rafa Matos. Both these two men going for the championship, and of course sorted it out last year by a countback in terms of who won. Merrill taking it in the end on that countback, but both men looking to try and get that championship this year outright without having to do a countback. But Rafa coming quickly through the field. He's up to 11th. He's got no acre in his sights, and now Evan Slater just in front of him. So Rafa Matos coming back through the field quickly and has got plenty of time to do it too. Evan Slater though back at the wheel, and he's in no mood to let anybody by because he's just happy to be back being a racing driver yet again as we go on board with him right now in the Franklin Road number 6. 17-year-old looking to go to university, but right now he's racing hard. Tries to hold off champion from Three Dimensional Services. That's Rafa Matos of Brazil.
Saw him sliding his car just a minute ago and got up on the curb a little bit there, Tyler, and you saw the water start to come out. As we all know, right by the curb, the water sort of sits there in a trough a little bit. You got to be smart and know where you can be on the curb in some corners and some you can't.
You got to be really careful doing that because you can snap the back of these cars around so quick when you touch that wet area, and it looked really wet. A lot of spray came up when you did that.
Out of 9 there, yeah, you saw the same thing. I thought, boy, that's a...
Whoa! Rafa going for a textbook overtake at the big machine. Vodka spiked coolers in a loop, but doesn't quite pull it off. Slater closed the door.
Yeah, Rafa looks like he's got a little more pace here than Evan, but Evan did a good job defending there, as he should.
I'm just glad to see Evan out there. He hasn't done any racing in 2 or 3 months. And Tyler, you know what that's like. You get out there and you're a bit rusty. He said, yeah, he felt a little second hand. And of course, not a lot of track time. Chris Durbin put a bunch of oil down on the first day of practice. So he's really working against it as Rafa does get through now. We were on board with Evan to take it with the Franklin Road on board.
Worked with Evan Slater, earlier in the season when I was coaching that. He's really talented. He does not in the car quite as much as the rest of these guys, and so to see what he's doing and is impressive, and being able to come back from a couple of races off here and be in contention. It's impressive. I'm not surprised though.
Yeah, and he came back at Road America, did a few laps in practice there, and just realized he wasn't right. Got out of the car, sensible thing to do, and it's so hard when you're a 17-year-old young gun. But he did that, and he went to a couple of tracks on road cars, got himself some confidence back, and he really is back to his former self. I'm glad to see it. Through goes the leaders then. 14 laps of the 30, and it's still out front. Connor Zillage, who has been absolutely sensational, especially around the streets of Detroit and Nashville. But Brent Cruz is our championship leader. Austin Green still third. Nathan Hearn piling on the pressure as we're on board with the man in front of him, and of course that's Austin Green.
I love as we go through the onboards here because you can see all the campers that are on both sides of this racetrack. And sometimes, I've been here, especially on the big GTP weekends when I was running, it felt like you were actually racing through a campground to a point. It's really cool. And then you smell the fires that are going and everything of that nature. Yeah, it's a really cool deal.
But you get hungry with a little bit of barbecue. As you can see, Jade Buford coming in the Big Machine Vodka Spike Coolers car. We're on board with him as he comes to a stop. And this is not a lot of action going on. The team looking very slow and looking for something wrong with the car. So Jade with a problem of sorts, and they don't look as though they're going to try and sort it in any time soon. In comes Merrill with damage after that spin.
Yeah, it looks like he made some contact with somebody or a wall. I mean, that's pretty many laps here after he spun. So.
I'm wondering if this is a second. No, he has a spin. I think he's had a second accident.
Yeah.
Well, this is really bad news for Merrill.
The front suspension's down, Tyler, because they can't even hardly get the jack underneath it.
Yeah, he's got a flat tire, and it definitely looks like it hurt that suspension. I don't know if that's a result of the incident or a cause.
It's time for the baseball bat. I just saw it in the background. They used that at Nashville, of course, and to much effect, I may add. But they've got a baseball bat they take to every race just in case they need to panel beat it. But it's a great piece of tool that you have to add that to your toolbox now.
The way the points are structured now this year, in years prior, you didn't get points really paid beyond 21st or 22nd place. This year, they changed the point structure. You get paid basically the entire way through the field. And so what you're seeing a lot more this year are crews really trying to repair the cars to get them back out just to get another spot or two, because we saw Thomas and Rafa tied really last year in the points. And basically, it came down to a tiebreaker. And so every point matters. And these guys realize that. And now the point structure is such that every single position really does matter.
And you could argue that that's how Rafa Matos lost the championship last year, because he had a broken car at Coda. He did get back out there and did get a result, but didn't get enough points.
Yeah, exactly. So hats off to Trans Am though for kind of realizing that might make it more competitive and might give some people a chance to not just kind of throw away the weekend, but get out there and salvage some points.
Well, it certainly gives you incentive to fix the car, keep it on there, which is good for sponsors, good for television, right? And gives guys that are maybe not super experienced, they not only chance to get some points, but they get more track time, especially for the guys new to the series.
Back on board with the ASIO data, Barry Bowes from Texas. Going through the gearbox, down towards the boots, and into that cambered right-hander. Love this corner.
You buried the car in here. You go super deep. It's really high bank. It's uphill. Whoa. You can see Adrian Wasowski and Misha Glickberg going by.
Whoa, they're all going by. He's been missing gears. I think he's got a problem, actually. And then, you don't get overtaken by three cars in one corner, do you? So I think there's a problem for Barry Bowes, but he's putting up with it and just kind of driving around it at the moment. But as you saw, three cars coming through, including Rafa Matos.
Definitely looks like he's nursing something there.
Goikhberg back after a penalty off. He got a penalty at Lime Rock and continued with the appeal and went to Detroit. As we take a look at what's happening to Thomas Merrill, there is our champion, but that disappointment, you don't have to know what he's saying. You can see it's just a disappointing day at the office for Thomas Merrill, and this could be a pivotal moment in his championship. Second at the start of the day, but now with Cruz and Zilich going round, this is really going to pay nicely for Brent Cruz and Connor Zilich, and to a certain extent Rafa Matos if he gets a good result. Woodberg still.
You want to point out that lap times are still coming down.
Yeah.
Connor Zilich a few laps ago was about a second and a half faster than anybody on the track. You've now got Annunziata and Rafa turning lap times within a few tenths. So these guys are kind of catching on and figuring out the track. And but Connor's got quite a lead at this point, so he's a bit comfortable over Brent. 9 seconds. Again, if we get a caution here, it's going to stack him up and it's going to get really exciting.
Well, you mentioned those new points. Connor Zilich is fourth in the championship at the moment on 654, and with the way the points are, you can score over 100 points if it all goes right for you over a weekend. So Connor Zilich will be absolutely in a prime seat now to become an absolute contender for this championship. If he can hold this 9 second plus lead he's got at the moment, he, of course, those behind him will be looking for another caution so they can catch right up behind the Honda. But let's not tempt fate, because Connor Zilich has been the driver of the last few races. No question about it. You've got to be impressed with him.
Yeah, he's been really impressive. Just coming from the back to the front and
whoa, Rafa, where are you going? Rafa goes off. He made a move at the toe, but then he got out. He got his foot wrong there. Never mind the toe, but he went wide and he lost out to Lostowski.
Yeah, you talk about Connor Zilic and points, and he was really the beneficiary of our qualifying session getting cut, because I think he was sitting P5, which would have gotten him 1 bonus point, and they went back to practice times, which he was obviously P1 in. So he actually ended up, I think, getting 5 bonus points out of that. And those were 4 points he wasn't going to get if the qualifying session would have been upheld.
Looks like Rafa coming into Mission Foods turn 1, going to try and make another move up the hill. The obvious place to overtake, Scott, coming into the bus stop.
You mean turn 1 into the bus stop, and sometimes, going up over there into 8. So it depends on where your car works really, really well. But, we're talking about this 9-second lead that Connor has right now. I'm sort of interested, Tyler, that, if his car's working really well and he's doing that easy, that's great. And then if there's a yellow to pack up his good tires underneath him still, but if he's having to use tires up to come on this pace, if there is another yellow, then you got the situation.
Oh,
here goes Rafa.
What an overtake. That is why he is a 2-time Trans Am champion. When his first race in 2018 at Road Atlanta, I was there to watch it, but that was a classic overtake by Rafa as he gets past on Adrian Lostowski. Nicely done. We're back on board with Nathan Hearn, who's having a cracking day so far, still in 4th place. He's just on his fastest lap of 1:53.3. So Nathan Hearn, the 21-year-old Australian, fighting his way through the American field here. He's just coming off of Michelle Abate. Welcome back, the Las Vegan, as she gets back with Ghost and her team and racing for Nitro Motorsport this weekend. So welcome back, Michelle Abate.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me to see Connor.
Go ahead, Tyler, sorry.
It doesn't surprise me to see Connor Zilic pulling away like this. When I've won my races, it's funny, you start building a gap and then you start maintaining. It's like you start almost backing up brake zones, and you almost it seems like you go faster.
Yeah,
which is really interesting. It's kind of a bit of a paradox there, but yeah, I would guess that they're telling Connor that he's got an 11.8 second lead, and looks like we're under full course yellow here potentially.
Yeah, we are, and that was just as Austin Green was about to make his move on Brent Cruz. So everything that Zilic has done, and this must be so annoying when you're out there, Scott, because you've done all the hard work. 9 seconds he's built, and now it comes to naught.
Well, we were just chatting about this a second ago, obviously, weren't we? It's like, how much does the car have to use? And in the end result, if you've used up the tires and used up the car to get that lead that Connor may or may not have to, that's what we're interested in seeing. So we'll find out on the restart here whether Connor still has a lot of tires left underneath him, or if he's just ready to get going.
Well, we're under caution here, but how good is the Trans Am Championship when the fraternity that is Trans Am, when you finish your race and you're disappointed with what's gone on and you're the champion, you come straight to the booth. Thomas Merrill, what happened?
Well, fellas, thanks for having me. I wish it were in different circumstances, but it's nice to see you guys as always. I got to put my hand up, 100% my fault. I was a little frustrated after the contact with the 89 there, coming back up.
That's what spun you?
Yeah, the 29 had a good run on the 89. I tried to follow him through, and I just don't think Austin saw me, so he turned down at the apex, and it pushed me up on the curb, and it spun us around. So that sent us back a little bit. So coming back up to the field, and I'll tell you, the boys hit it right. That Bennett Mustang was flying. We were so good. We took a risk on the slick tires at the start, and we had a lot of pace.
Well, we've just been joined by Thomas Merrill, who of course is our current champion, but sadly the 26 Bennett's car, the Bridge Hall Coke car, is out of the race. And Thomas, I really feel for you, because this was, I felt for you this morning when you were down in 18th because you didn't get the qualifying that you wanted.
Yes.
And this is a crucial day because obviously you're second, you're fighting for the championship yet again to try and hold on to it. And this was going to be a great opportunity. It's all come to naught.
Yeah, no, it's so frustrating, and like I said, I put my hand up, and 100% my fault, and I had to apologize to the HB Tuners Bennett Bridge Hall crew, because man, that Coke Mustang was fast today. And, we made up a lot of places in a short period of time, and watching Austin Green's on board there, I feel like we could have been right there with them, making a race for the podium for sure.
We heard that the Coke cars were carrying like inside windshield wipers.
Well, yeah, we thought we needed to get creative with the fogging. The fogging in these TA2 cars is the biggest limitation. They're wonderful cars to drive in the wet, apart from the fact that you can't see where you're going. So,
which is important.
Yeah, that usually helps. Yeah, that usually helps. So, as always, we're always cutting edge with everything that we're doing on the development side, and they came up with a great solution to minimize the fogging. And I was a bit sad actually that it was dry because I wanted to see how that worked. But,
how are the conditions out there? You're the perfect guy to ask. You've just been through 20 laps of it. What was it like?
Surprisingly good. Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, that first yellow was a great opportunity for us to all look at the racetrack and inspect it to look for where the dry patches were, and it was actually much better than I was giving it credit for. So that was very useful, and that's why we started going so much faster when we went green again.
Yeah, I was watching the speeds, and you guys were only about 10 miles an hour slower than you were actually in the dry going into the bus stop, and then the apex speed started to come up. It wasn't long before you guys were right on tap. It was impressive.
Yeah. No, I was watching my predictive time, and we weren't far off of dry times there, and it was really coming to us. And it's just a shame to be sitting here instead of sitting out there, you know.
Well, talking of sitting there, look at this. The Hawk Performance car of Adrian Lostowski is in the pits. And he was running in 9th as well. That's a shame. And it also in is the 71. And in and out. I don't know if Lostowski's going to get out. But, this is going to be interesting now. Yeah, whatever's happening, it's going to be a long time in there. Let's head down once again to Ben Sissel. He's got the competition director of Silver Hair, Gil Martin.
Hey, I'm down here with Gil Martin, the competition director for Silver Hair, and I've heard from Laura that you're really winning NASCAR crew chief. You're here with the TA2 series, and you guys made the right tire call. What a move by Connor, knowing that the race was going to come to him. What made you make this call? What made you make this call?
Scenario at Road Atlanta at the first of the year. It was wet. We knew we were going to have to take care of the car. We knew we were going to have to take care of the car in the beginning. Some of these guys had wets on, and we talked to Connor about that he had to give way, let them dry the track, give it 3 or 4 laps to come around, and it happened. I mean, Jeff Holly's been doing this a long time too, and he knows exactly what these tires are going to dry out, and it pretty well played in their hand. Most of the field played that strategy, but we've got a guy in the car that's way older than his age. Connor is so good in the car about finding the right line to run and taking care of it, so hopefully he can get it done these next 9 laps.
And then after everybody came in after that double yellow, it seems like lap times were dropping by like 3 seconds a lap, and Connor's been able to pull a big gap. Now on this restart, what are you going to say to him?
Well, I think he needs to protect in the first corner because this place is notorious for cars getting under you in the first corner. So he's got to protect that, get his lead back, but not try to just burn the car down, because more than likely we'll have another caution here towards the end. They'll stack them up again. But I think he's smart enough to know to block his inside right here, and hopefully we'll be fine.
A good call here from the Silver Hair crew. We're going to see how this shapes out. But for Connor Zilish and Brent Cruz, our young guns, our top young guns, to be able to have the wherewithal to let the other cars go through, knowing they're not in the same race as somebody on different tires. Scott Goodyear, that's got to be impressive to somebody like you who does so much driver development. Gentlemen, back to you in the booth.
Pretty impressive with all these drivers, because been in these conditions many times, especially for the ones that started on the slicks. I will tell you, it's very difficult. Now, I'm used to cars with downforce, Jonathan.
Yeah.
These guys just have these big cars. They're heavy, and like I mentioned before, your right foot is traction control, and your right foot's also ABS braking, because you're in charge of the braking, and these guys have been very impressive with what they've done in these conditions.
What do you think's happening here with Lostowski? There's obviously, they're trying to get him back out, and that's what Tyler was talking about. You're trying to get as many points as possible. I can see Ben just out of the windshield there, trying to have a look himself. But what do you think is wrong with it? They're trying to get it started.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if they're looking for something that's causing the engine misfire or something of that nature, or there's an oil leak. I mean, as a driver, if you're putting oil in the rear tires, you know that, and because the back end's going to start to slip out. But obviously now the left front tire just came off, and they've just noticed something, because now they're looking in that corner. So they've identified the area where the problem is. And I'm not sure if that liquid underneath is from.
Yeah, that's not good, is it?
So they'll understand what's happening here very shortly.
Yeah, you don't want to send a car out that's dripping like that because anything could happen. It could ruin everybody's race, including your own.
Oh, yeah, that's, and a lot of times the flaggers, they just do such a great job here at all the circuits we run at. But, sometimes they can spot the oil going on the track, but usually there's cars shortly thereafter following the car that's leaking the oil. And maybe the flag doesn't get up in time, or the car goes off, which then alerts the flagger to say, my gosh, what's happening there? But look how dry it is now. I mean, we talked about this before, and Tyler mentioned it. This track starts to dry out quickly, and then the band of it opens up very much, and you really have a lot of area there to be able to go and use your race car. And the dry line, when it starts to come, and you get more opportunities for passing because the dry line starts to widen.
Well, this is a big race for Austin Green, a big one for Nathan Hearn in 4th position. Dylan McAvern having a good run up to 5th position. Adam Andretti likewise. And McAvern and Andretti, you know, they're not at every race in terms of TA2. I think Adam's going to race a Coda again, but every race counts. And you know this as a racing driver when you're making your way through. And I know Adam's been around a while, but when you're not got a full season, when you get in the car, you've got to make it happen.
It really is, you know, and I've been fortunate to have full seasons, but the thing with that is, you know, if you have an injury, and I've had those where you go and miss sometimes 3 or 4 races or 5 or 6 races when I had my broken back, you know, you get back into the car and you feel on your back foot all the time just trying to be with these guys. And I'm not sure if, you know, and a lot of it's really just a bit of a mental game. You know, you want to be there, you want to be sharp. And so if you come in there and you're doing sporadic races, it's very difficult.
Well, the man alongside you, who was our runner-up in the E-Series, Trans Am didn't stop for the pandemic. We just went E-racing instead, and I'm delighted for Tyler Casera because he kind of came to my notice at that point and really made a name for himself in that series, being going head-to-head with Josh Hurley, but and then literally turning from sim, so out there if you're watching, from sim to racing driver, Tyler Casera. I've just got my rig, by the way, got my Fanatec set up, I'm ready to go. I might have to call you, but Tyler, you know what it's like. You've got to perform when you get the chance. Look at these guys coming, several cars coming in.
Yeah, looks like those might be the lap down cars.
Yeah, this is David Hoots doing what he said he would do, which is to try to get the cars that are Nesbitt, for example, was behind Zilich just a moment ago. So he will put them through, as you can see, a line of cars waiting here, and that is because they are effectively further down in the order, and then they'll come back, and then the race hopefully will therefore be whole, as I would call it, and you're not fighting through traffic.
No, but if you've been down a lap and you're just a couple of cars behind the leader, I see it both ways. I mean, I understand improving the show and everything of that nature, but as a race car driver, you know, I'm going to get past that guy. If we have another yellow, I'm going all the way around again. I'm now back on the lead lap on the tail end of it, but, you know, that's what we do, right?
Yeah, it's just really tough. I mean, it's like you said, it's a fine line of, like, making the competition what it is and potentially putting the front runners at risk, you know, of staying packed up on the restart or some unforeseen contact happening. So I get it. You know, I guess as a driver, I'm for it, especially, you know, I tend to run towards the front. So I'm usually the beneficiary of that, and so I'm for it. But I know as somebody who ends up a lap down, your race is pretty much over at that point.
Right.
Yeah. Guys, we're about to go green again. I just want to take your temperature on what you think. Let's just take Zilich's strategy here. He's done it all right. He's got Nathan Hearn behind him and Brent Cruz. How do you play this?
Oh, for me, I guess I was asking Tyler about this before. I mean, really, did Connor
Hold that thought, Scott. We're going to go down to Ben in the pit lane. He's got some news.
All right, well, here I am. Sorry about that. With Scott. All right, well, here I am. Sorry about that. We don't know if it goes green, but if it goes green, I got to. We don't know if it goes green, but if it goes green, I got to let him go. But Dylan from like 17th to 5th, I know he's got a lot of experience here, and I know he's done a lot of laps in these kind of conditions. But what's he saying on the radio?
He's good right now. He just had to come from pretty far back after just the weather this weekend, and things being a little bit rough. But no, he's a hell of a good racer. He's a lot of fun to work with. So I don't think we're done going forward right at this point. So I'm looking forward to it. It looks like we are going green. Should be fun.
All right, well, we're going green right now, gentlemen. Back to you in the booth.
That's Scott Lagacy, former racer himself, and now running SLR Racing and doing a great job. He's got a real talent for finding youngsters. I mean, Dylan McAvern obviously been around for a long time, but he's got youngsters coming through and creating, if you want to be real harsh about it, creating NASCAR drivers of the future, and that's perfect for us.
He really does. I had a conversation with last year when I was doing some stuff with you guys on the Trans Am stuff, and interesting just to see his point about it. You know, he's very stern, very tough, and he runs a very rigid program. So, but has the experience and the knowledge to actually help guide those drivers. That's for sure. So back to what I was asking you before. Does Connor have good enough tires right now, or was he using up the car? And as we talked about before, the car could have just been sailing. Maybe he's going to drive again. But Brent Cruz, boy, if he's second, he's filling your mirror.
Yeah, Brent Cruz is not going to let you go easy. I do think Connor's got, you know, really good pace. He's had great pace all weekend, so I don't expect to see much different here. But you know, a little bit tighter. So we'll see what these guys behind him can do.
Well, we're waiting for the green flag, and there it is. It's make or break time here in Trans Am TA2 from the Glen. Away goes Connor Zilich at the front, but it's the championship leader. from Nitro Motorsports, Brent Cruz for Franklin Road sponsorship, and Zilic makes a mistake. Zilic goes wide. Surely this is the opportunity for Austin Green and Brent Cruz. Green looking for a way past Cruz.
Actually, that ended up being an advantage for him. Look at how much you gained there.
I know. But I guess so, yeah, he got a nice drive up the hill. But this is Austin Green at his finest. He's coming alongside the 70, but unfortunately, he's going to be on the outside of the bus stop, and that's exactly where he is. And through goes Brent Cruz. Nathan Hearn ready to pick up the pieces if it all goes horribly wrong. There's Dylan McAvern in the blue, white, and yellow that we just heard from his team leader. But what a race start that was, or restart it was, as we go back on board with Nathan Hearn in fourth, trying to get past Austin Green. Cracking race so far, and these conditions are really you've got to be on your mettle to be out there right now.
Another caution coming up.
Another caution. So somebody else has gone off. Wow, this has got to play as a driver, guys. This got to play into your concentration because you're up, down, up, down.
Well, actually, Cruz says, okay, I get another chance now. So maybe I'm going to try and get. I think he was sitting back there. It looked like he was sitting back there, Tyler, and going to try and take a run down the bus stop. But obviously, Zilic such a run by going on the outside of the curbing now. So now this time, does he turn around and try and make sure that he has an opportunity to try and get him on the inside of turn one?
Yeah, it looked like Zilic didn't really intend to go out there. It's like he got snapped. He got the. He got that exit curb, which holds a lot of water.
Oh, that's what's happened. One of the local guys. That's John Weisberg, yeah.
So Connor looked like he had to chase the car out there, and it really worked for him. There's a lot more grip out there beyond the curb. And we got Doug Peterson here with some damage.
Yeah, so maybe Weisberg and Peterson have come together. Of course, Doug Peterson, who runs this team for the Three-Dimensional Services Group, but that's Austin Green. So unfortunately, the former champion out of this race. Carry on, Tyler.
Well, interesting, by the time we finish that, we're at 8 laps. So we're going to have maybe like a 4-lap shootout or something like that. Then the tires don't come into play, man. You're just sitting up in the seat.
It doesn't matter, yeah. And they've also, they really babied the sticker tires for the first several laps of the race. So they haven't really gotten a full race stint on those tires quite yet. So I think they got plenty left, and I think it's going to be an all-out dogfight here for the win.
And really, that's the point now, is as we go to green next time, it is hell-bent for leather for the flag, right?
Yeah, we had
no holding back now.
2 years ago we had a restart where I was second behind Connor Mozak, and it was a 4-lap shootout, and it was me, Mozak, and Rafa just going at it for the last 4 laps, and it was a heck of a battle that we had. It looks like here we got an incident in the S's, which that's never a good place to crash. And
we've got a couple of cars there. Now. Does that not? Well, I'm not a racing driver, but if I saw that, I'd be like, hang on a minute, this could finish under caution. And Hearn's literally looking back at the incident. What's going through your mind now in terms of that? Or are you thinking, you know what, I might have a 1-lap sprint here. Here comes the 87 of Peterson into the pits, but also the 83 is in there as well. So it's been a busy day at the office for the Three-Dimensional Services team. Boris Said Jr. is just behind, and it looks so he's got a problem. The door is off on his driver's side. He's being talked to by his engineer, but Boris Said Jr., having had a good run up to 4th place at one point, looks as though he's going to retire his car as well, so not a good day. But Rafa's still out there, and Austin Green is heading for a podium if he can stay where he is.
I'm not sure if we've talked about it, but the early leader in the race, Thomas Annunziata, he's actually sitting in 35th, 6 laps off the pace. So I'm not sure if something happened to him that we missed, or maybe I missed that when I stepped out.
That's a good point, because as you say, everybody's going to score points, and so Annunziata could well get some decent points out of this if he keeps going. So we're under caution here, and we've got a major incident on the bridge involving 2 or 3 cars. In fact, there's a couple of incidents, actually, because Peterson went off, so too did John Weisberg, and so that's why we're under caution. So a lot of drama in this race.
We were talking about now with 7 laps left to go, do we get a 4-lap shootout, a 3-lap shootout? But I mean, the safety crew here is so good that I think that they'll have these guys up and removed, and you know, when you ask the question, Jonathan, as a driver, you know, you can only do what gets given to you, whether it's going to be a 4-lap or a 3-lap or whatever, if it's a green white checker or anything of that nature. You're just sitting there no matter where you are trying to come up with a plan to be able to pass the guy in front of you. It doesn't matter if you're in second going for first or if you're in fifth, you want to move up a couple of positions. You've sized the guy up that's in front of you. You see where the strengths are. You've probably had a restart or two where you get to see how they are in restarts. So for me, I was always trying to figure out what I need to do. But the most important thing is you guys can't get out of line before you get the green flag and
yes,
jump.
That's important.
Yeah, so, you know, it's very interesting. I was watching Cruz on that last restart. He was getting closer and closer, but he was dragging the brake because I saw the brake lights come on. So he's on the gas and trying to get that thing popped out. But, yeah, it's the timing of the whole thing, isn't it?
Yeah, the rule here where you can't pull out a line before start-finish really kind of ties your hands a bit, and you can't make a move until after that start-finish line. And but that being said, to your point, the restarts are a prime time to make up spots here. It's really difficult to pass in these cars, I feel like anyway, you know, when you're at speed. So these restarts, everybody's trying to capitalize on them.
Well, I could tell from what I'm looking at from above on the drone that David Hoots wants to go green again. He's a former NASCAR guy. He knows all about the show, and he will want this race to finish under green if he can make it happen and they can get everything cleared up. And that's why you're seeing a bunch of cars coming into the pit lane so that he can get the order again and that we can have a straight race from the leaders. And those leaders are Connor Zilic, Austin Green, and of course, right there with them, Brett Cruz, second place, our championship leader. So we're under caution here, and we are waiting for the resumption, and we hope it will come, and we'll get a sprint to the finish. Still clearing up the debris. Welcome back to MAV TV, and we are under caution, and we're hoping, we're all crossing our fingers here in the booth, that we get at least a sprint last lap to decide this race. I've got Tyler Casera and Scott Goodyear taking us through the action. And guys, this is the tense moment. You know it's make or break right now.
Well, absolutely. And you asked about what you're ready to get when you're ready to get back to it. And the car is actually on the hook, the car that we just saw in the S's. So they can take that off anywhere around there. We may see green this time by. We'll wait to see what happens with the safety car lights there on the top. But irregardless, if we don't, we should have a 4 or 5 lap shootout. So that's going to be excellent to see.
It looked like that was Caton and Sarche there in the S's that got together. Getting a report there was some spinning cars in front of them and maybe just got collected in it. So really unfortunate for them. And to kind of get back to Nunziata, I also received a report that he actually went off right here going down into the laces of the boot prior to that last caution. So that's what took him out.
Well, I can also confirm that the 80 of Robert Noaker III, who also was up in the sharp end earlier on, was down in 31st place, but has retired the car. So too is Doug Peterson, and as you saw, the 83 of Boris Sett Jr., all retired from this race. Big race of attrition, but a massive race for the championship. Scott and Tyler, I mean, here's another look. We've got a replay here. This is on board with Evan Slater. We should see what happens here.
Yeah, a lot of cars up front there that actually side by side, just trying to make space in there.
Big crash.
Yeah, it looks like Caton there.
Good job done by Slater.
Slater gets into it a bit. Weisberg.
Well, that's an awful sight from Slater's point of view because he was in a big crash at Detroit, and this is your first race back. The last thing you want to do is get into a big prang, but he hit the brakes hard and managed to slow the car down. But always scary. You saw how he jigged out there, and he was blind to it until he came right across it.
Yeah, it didn't look like he made too hard a contact, but no. I'm sure they're going to have to pull that car in. These TA2 cars are really sensitive on the front end, and you put a hole even the size of a baseball in it, and you lose the whole, all the downforce. So it's really tough.
So we are behind the pace car in the closing stages of our Big Machine Vodka Spike Coolers TA2 series. It's round 10, 4 rounds to go in this championship. We head to St. Louis, then VIR, and then we finish off the season as always at COTA. And looking forward to what should be a real showdown. It's just got more and more interesting. If Zilic can hold this position, he will really help his chances of catching Brent Cruz in the run to COTA. But if Brent Cruz, on the other hand, finishes second, he's done a great job in very, very tough conditions.
You know, it's very interesting because off to St. Louis, as you mentioned, for the next racetrack, you know, a bit of an unknown because it's that road course that's actually in the oval that the Indy cars run. So, I don't know, I've always had mixed results whenever I've gone to a new track. Sometimes you end up getting there and it all suits you and it works really well, and you can get your car working really well very quickly. And sometimes you walk away from there and go, man, what did I miss? You know what I'm saying?
I always like that. That's always I feel like one of my strong suits, showing up to a track that nobody's been to. You know, nobody's got a notebook. You know, these guys have notebooks,
right?
You know, binders deep. And kind of like last year, we showed up to Charlotte, and it just played out that, you know, we were able to get it figured out first, and we were able to capitalize on it.
Guys, I've just been informed, and I'll ask my race director and my racing driver. It's going to be a timed race. So we have on the clock 9 minutes and 30 seconds. How does that change your approach?
Well, you instead of maybe 5, getting 4 laps left towards the end, you know, maybe you're going to turn around and get a couple. So they'll tell you from the pit lane exactly how many they think that you're going to get. You know, if we stay green right to the end, and they're going to tell you, they're still going to give you the white flag.
Yep.
And so you still know if you're getting close to somebody that you got to get it done this lap. That's good and bad because sometimes you make it through. Sometimes you see the white flag and cars don't make it all the way around. So we'll find out what happens.
And Tyler, does it change your approach when it isn't for laps? It's for the, you know, basically the timing. You're watching the clock now.
Well, I mean, it's still laps at the end of the day, right? I mean, your crew chief is working the time back to figure out. Like, I'm looking here at our pace car speed, you know, on a 3.5 minute lap.
Mm-hmm.
If they don't go green this time and they do one more lap, they're only going to have time for one more lap.
Okay. So, well, there you go. That's exactly why you're here, Tyler. Thank you. But so, yeah, that's what you've got to do, you and your engineer, right?
Yeah, and you definitely will approach the restart differently if you know you have one lap versus 2 or 3, right? You're going to defend harder probably if you have one lap versus 2 or 3, and you know. But at the end of the day, these guys are all just going 100%.
Yeah,
trying to get everybody.
I'll tell you who to watch: Nathan Hearn at this restart. It's going to be really interesting to see. He so needs a podium. He's had an up and down season. They try to steady him down a little bit. He went actually back over to England and did some driver training with you know, some big wigs over there. And they were saying to me, or his team were telling me, that he's got the speed. You can't dial in speed, but you can dial it out sometimes when sometimes you're a little too over aggressive. He's 21. He's here in the States trying to make a name for himself. He's a champion in Australia. He's got a lot of fans and a lot of people behind him. He chose not to go supercar racing, but come here to Trans Am, and that tells you how good this championship is.
Yeah, to your point about being able to dial out, I mean, that's actually one of the things I feel like being, you know, at the sharp end of a Spec Miata field teaches you a lot about momentum and things. And, and when you get into these cars, it's you have to dial some of that out, and that's easier than trying to teach somebody to learn that in these cars. And so I feel like that's why you see a lot of these guys, like Connor Zilic, who's really good in Miatas, also really good here. He's great at everything he gets in, but you see a lot of those guys have success.
Well, I thought we were going to get a green this time by, but they're obviously, because of that incident between the guardrails up there through the S, is probably still picking up some debris and what have you. The track has to be clean. I mean, as a race director, that's what we're standing up top always looking at. You're waiting for all the information there, and they are considering about doing a red, and that's what we're seeing right now. So we're going to finish under green, as we always should as far as the show is concerned. And they're going to stop all the cars in the front stretch.
Well, okay, so we are under red flag situation. The race has stopped, as you can see by the drone. Let's head down to Ben Sissel for the latest.
Well, thank you, Jonathan. Here's what's happening. We were just over here with Tony Pirelli. You can see him there sitting by the wall. Stu, if you can get a shot. He's been on the track with John Claggett, with RC, with David Hoots, and the track, trying to figure out if we can work out the time, because we do go to lunch break. So if I understand this correctly, what they're doing is they're stopping the cars from going around so that the workers can safely clear the track. They're going to all stop right here under red flag conditions. This is a crazy one. Usually we stop them in pit lane, but if somebody can't get refired or restarted, it's a little bit downhill. but that's what's going on. So we've got Connor Zillich, Britt Cruz, Austin Green, Nathan Hearn, and Dylan McIvern with Rafa and Adam Andretti behind them. This is going to be a crazy restart, gentlemen. I'm going to send it back up to you, and then I'm going to ask permission to go out on the track and talk to the drivers. Back to you, gentlemen.
So as we are under caution here, in fact, we're under red flag situation. We're on board with Nathan Hearn. I said we were going to throw to a break. We're going to throw to a break right now here on MAV TV, and we come back. We'll have the resumption. So then, guys, let me ask you a question. How does the car feel? You've got no fuel. You've got 2 laps. The cars are cooling down. The tires are cooling down. The brakes are cooling down. What do you do?
I'm going to turn around and look at the Trans Am expert sitting beside me. I know on a single-seater it's a little bit different, but right now these things are horses to travel with when you guys are pushing them. And I'm used to a downforce car, which you can smoothly finesse, and I don't turn the steering wheel near as much as you guys do.
Yeah, these cars are a handful on cold tires for sure, but I don't know that it's going to be a true cold tire kind of situation.
No.
You're going to have a lap to get things back up to temp, and I don't think we're going to see much different here. I think you just go for it. It's kind of like driving in the rain, right? You got to remember everybody is in the same situation.
Right.
Everybody's cars are sitting on the front straightaway here, cooling off. And even if you feel like you might not have as much grip going into turn 1, like everybody is going to be in the same boat. So
what's your biggest worry then? Let me put it a different way. What are you worried about as you go on the restart? Brakes or tires?
It's not brakes. It's definitely going to be lateral grip. You know, making sure that you're able to get through the corner with the same kind of speed and pace that you were before. But these cars they slide around a lot, but they're pretty forgiving. Like you can really get the car sideways, and there are some race cars that have a tendency to be snappy. Or snap oversteer, and these cars are really kind of floaty in a sense. They're a lot like a Spec Miata, where you can really get them sideways and slide it.
Well, thanks, guys. You're getting the very interesting insight of Tyler Casero, one of our top drivers in the series. Not in a car. Find him one, please. Get him some sponsorship. We need him back. And Scott Goodyear, of course. And we are waiting for the resumption, which we think will be a 2-lap sprint. We welcome our viewers on MAV TV back to our live coverage of the race. But as you can see, we're stuck on the front straight at the moment under red flag conditions, but we're expecting a restart with a quick sprint to the finish. Let's head down to Ben Sissel for the latest.
Well, thank you, Jonathan. I'm here with Joe Stevens, but before we get into that, I just want to say Tony Pirelli did come up to me, told me in my ear that he was able to get Watkins Glen to push our Governor's Cup race back about 15 minutes. That comes up next after the lunch break. So it looks like he said we're going to give the drivers one more shot. It's up to them to finish it under green. I'm with Joe Stevens. Nathan Hearn is currently in 4th. Josh Sarchett was one of the people that got hit in the S's, causing this long break. But what is Nathan saying? He seems to do so well in these close circuit, close wall kind of Bathurst style racetracks. You look like you got a smile on your face and you want to go back to green.
We want it to go back green. Nathan's ready. The sprint racing format is like his bread and butter. So I'm super pumped to be here with Nick from Cube 3 and Bo from Berryman Products, both representing that car. I'm excited. This is why we come. This is racing, and it's, although wet, it's been a beautiful event here with Trans Am and SVRA at the Glen. I love coming here, and what an awesome show so far.
So, Nick, with Cube 3, you've been with us at almost every race. Are you nervous? You feel pretty good right now?
Well, I'm always nervous on these restarts with probably 2 laps to go, finishing under maybe a white and checkered flag. It's a tough field at the top there with Connor leading, Brent in second. But we're going to make the move, see what happens. And
not to mention you've got Dylan McIvern behind you, Rafa Matos, Adam Andretti. There's no gimmies out here in the Big Machine Vodka Spike Coolers TA2 series. And then Bo from Berryman, you look super calm, man.
Oh, we've been with this team for a long time. I know Nick and I know Joe. We're all ready to make this push here at the end. So we've got a good car. We've got a great driver. We're ready for this green flag.
Now, one of our fan favorite cars is that Berryman car. I think the number 77's driving it with kind of that Rat Fink, the artwork on there. That's always one of the fan favorites. Does that feel good for you to know that everybody loves that car?
Man, it's so awesome to see the fan turnout here at Watkins Glen. I mean, every year it's a big turnout here, and we are so excited to have the fan turnout. So that livery is just, it's special, so it's great to see people like it.
And I love it. Nick, Bo, thank you so much for your support, because without your support, we wouldn't have these shows and we wouldn't be able to do this like we do. So thank you so much. Sponsors are so important in motorsports. You can see they're still lined up. They're going to get this thing cleaned up. Jonathan, back up to you in the booth.
I love it. Getting them all lined up. You wouldn't see that in IndyCar or Formula One, would you? I love Trans Am. We're talking, of course, about this man, Nathan Hearn. You can see from his body language, even though he's not moving much, he's just pensively thinking about the restart. And concentration now is key, because he knows what's in front and what's behind. And Tyler, this is no time for making mistakes, is it?
No, it's not. With the 2 or 3 laps that we're going to have under green, there's, if there was 1 lap to go, there's desperation throughout the field, and there's Hail Marys left and right. But with 2 or 3 laps to go, I expect we'll be pretty clean under the restart, but then, we'll see how that last lap shakes out.
And Scott, if you were Nathan Hearn, you've won here at this track, and you know now the situation of a projection of 2, maybe 3 laps. Where would you make and when would you make that move for the podium?
Well, first off, I think you got to try and get 1 done going into 1, because you want to get yourself past so the other 2 guys don't get too far away. And then if you can actually get a bit of a draft and make some time up in the bus stop. But the first 2 guys up in front are really, really quick, obviously. We know that. I'm just looking at the best time that these guys have done with Connor Zillage right now at almost a 152 flat, and then you end up with Brent Cruz. I mean, he's 6/7 tenths of a second away. So is that going to play into what we just saw on the last restart, where he gets, Connor gets a bit of an advantage and can just pull away, or does Brent just go, you talk about the Hail Marys. I mean, okay, I'm just sit back here and the start goes, and I'm going to dive down the inside just to see what I can get.
Go ahead.
I was to say, we see on the front straightaway there the cones on the left side. So Connor is in charge of the restart. It's not at the flagger's discretion. They're gonna throw the green flag when they see Connor launch. And so, he has an advantage on this restart getting in turn 1 where Brent's got to react to him. And it's a short little stint down to turn 1, and it's going to be difficult here for Brent to do something unless he, like I said, really throws a Hail Mary, which I don't think he's going to do with only 2 or 3 laps left. If it was 1 to go, it might be a different story.
We've been talking about Nathan Hearn and his chances, but Austin Green, don't forget, he's new to this team. He's still in his early 20s. He's trying to make a name for himself. He comes from a family. David Green, his father, was a NASCAR Xfinity champion, and so this is a real breakout moment for this young kid who came to racing quite late. He did a lot of karting, but the 22-year-old Austin Green, what a day for him if he can make this happen.
Just the youth that's coming into all levels of motor racing right now. I mean, we've seen the switch in F1 a few years ago. We've seen the switch coming into IndyCar now. I keep seeing all these announcements of these young guys like at 21, all these guys that are coming through there. And the youngness has come into Trans Am racing here over this last few years. And I guess we're obviously seeing it with the people being supported from NASCAR teams and some of the NASCAR manufacturers. It's becoming a young guy's game, so to speak. But then there's, as we're talking about with Rafa Matos also, and obviously with Tyler, I mean, guys that are winning races that have the experience. What's going to play out here? The guys that are experienced and smart, or the guys that are a little bit youthful and going to take a risk?
Massive moment for all these young men's careers. These are the days where you really make a name for yourself. The Watkins Glen iconic circuit. We've been racing here since the mid-50s, and of course racing started here back in 1948 down in the village, and we did a reenactment earlier in the weekend. Some 30,000 people coming to that. But this is the big highlight of the weekend, the TA2.
It'll be interesting to see on the restart what happens up in the S's. I saw quite a bit of Speedy Dry still laying down on the inside, right where you want to put the car. And I don't know that it's going to cause an issue from a grip perspective, but visibility for anybody really behind probably the first 5 could be a bit clouded.
Out of the modal toe down towards the heel of the boot, the famous boot. And we are going to go green at the end of this lap. You can see the lights are off on the safety car.
You know, you mentioned about the oil dry that's through the S's. I mean, the S's here remind me sort of like the kink at Road America. It's really best done single file. And as we saw there before, running 2x2 sometimes just doesn't work. And so all these guys are going to have to be patient with that and just get out through their single file. And then if you got a car to do it, and get a draft and then get somebody going into the bus stop. But that 2x2 just doesn't seem to be working.
Yeah, you're flat out from turn 1 all the way to the bus stop through the S's. You're on the edge like you are in the kink, using all the track left to right. So there's really not much room for error carrying as much speed as you need to.
Well, at least you guys can bounce door handle to door handle. Open wheel cars doesn't work all that well.
Well, the weight of the world is on the 17-year-old shoulders of young Connor Zilic for Silver Hair Racing. Maurice Hull and his wife gave him a great opportunity. He loves racing for this team. He loves winning for this team. He's done that already this season on several occasions. Can he do it again here at Watkins Glen? The green flag waves, we're away, and this is the sprint to the finish here. Zilic gets a good start, but Brent Cruz already looking for a way past. Austin Green still third, Nathan Hearn going wide, but now slotting into position. Dylan McAvoy, everybody in position, but out goes wide Austin Green. He got pushed out wide again, and here comes Nathan Hearn. Hearn makes it to third. Great stuff by the Aussie. Wake up if you're not already in Australia, because Nathan Hearn is doing the business. Back comes Green at him though. Oh, side by side, guys, this is fantastic.
It's amazing, but Connor Zilic again just gets that little bit of a jump by the curb. So it's interesting to see in turn 1 how he's able to go in there, even on the cooler tires. His braking is amazing getting into there.
Yeah, and Austin Green got up on the exit curve of 1 and lost his drive, and that's what gave Nathan Hearn the ability to get up there beside him. Looks like he made it by going into the bus stop, and he's up to P3.
Zilic doing a great start, though, and just doing enough to get away from Brent Cruz. Brent Cruz, though, is thinking with one eye surely on the championship at this point. He doesn't want to lose a place, but he doesn't want to try and necessarily do anything untoward to Zilic or take both of them out. He'll be happy with second, I would have thought. But then again, I'm not a racing driver.
If the opportunity's there, you're going to take it. But as we talked about a second ago, Connor Zilic just seems to have the car. He can find that 2 or 3 tenths, sometimes 5 tenths a lap, going quicker if he needs to. So it's going to be very tough here for Cruz to be, obviously, with his lead he's getting to even make a dent on it.
Well, Nathan Hearn's now got his eyes on young 15-year-old Brent Cruz. And look at him, the young 21-year-old Australian in the number 29, Cube 3. Cube 3 have been very, very calm and backing this young man, but now he needs to get the results. And if he could get a scout that is the championship leader, and I think the man who's going to go on and win the 2023 championship for Franklin Road and for Nitro Motorsports, Brent Cruz, Nathan Hearn's opportunity is now, right now, at the white flag, last lap. Here we go. Can Austin Green come back? Can Nathan Hearn get Brent Cruz? Or will Zilic march away with another victory here? Because Brent Cruz is losing time as he defends from Nathan Hearn.
I think Brent struggled a little bit on the restart with his car. It didn't look like his car was handling very well, but here in the last couple of corners, it looks like it's settled down, and he's found the pace here to stay ahead of Nathan.
Tense times. This is really good. Last lap then, and we're coming down to the nitty-gritty. It's been an amazing season for Connor Zilic. He's had a brilliant win at both Detroit and Nashville. Those on the streets, 3 wins in all, because he also won at Atlanta. This will make it 4, but it's not over yet. A mistake could happen, but the way Zilic is driving for Silver Hair, I don't see it happening. But Nathan Hearn could be the man to take second place if he can get alongside Brent Cruz, and we're about to find out if he can.
He's got a couple more opportunities, one getting into the toe of the boot here, this next corner, and then the corner following that. And then from there, it's going to be really difficult for him to make a move.
Yeah, what he doesn't want to do is do anything silly now. There he comes! As close as he's been, and Brent Cruz, if he doesn't know he's there, does now. But time's running out, and so are corners.
Yeah, this is going to be probably his last shot here. He's going to have to throw a Hail Mary here if he's going to get by him.
Well, if I know anything from what he's learned back in England, when he went to do some more coaching, he's going to settle, I think, for third place. No need for heroics unless the opportunity avails itself. But Brent Cruz doesn't make that many mistakes, and I don't think he's going to do it today. But look how close Nathan Hearn is. Closing stages, last turn coming up. 2 corners to go here. Coming up to the Customers Bank, turn 11. Here they come, Connor Zilic leading the way, and is going to take his 4th win in the number 7 Chevrolet. He comes down the main straight again, sees the checkered flag, takes the checkered flag, and wins at the Glen. Second goes to Brent Cruz, our championship leader, and Nathan Hearn, the Australian, takes a famous 3rd for his championship. Austin Green takes 4th, McAvern 5th, Matos, the 2-time champion, takes 6th, Thad Moffin all the way up to 7th, and Trekkie 8th, Durbin 9th, and Keith Prochuk. Drama at the very last corner as Prochuk involved, the 42 involved of Parker DeLong, also Ben Mayer in the 75 involved, and it looked like maybe Jim Gallagher. What drama indeed, guys. Take a breath.
Well, that's all from somebody just trying to do that, like you said, the Hail Mary, trying to stick it in there on the inside. And I always tell these young drivers I work with, if you're not beside the door handle in your world, cockpit to cockpit in our world, and presenting yourself, guess what? It's probably not going to work. And we haven't seen it, but I can probably textbook tell you that's probably what happened.
Yeah, that switch back between turn 10 and 11, it's enticing, but turn 11 is tricky to go too wide through there, and that, I would guess, too, that's probably what happened.
And you come out of turn 10, it's so difficult to get set up for 11, especially I even know in a downforce car. And these things here, I mean, it's you got to be carrying all that weight from one end to the other.
Yeah.
Got to be difficult.
Well, what a great season it's turning out for Connor Zilic. As I keep mentioning his age, but it belies his skill level at just 17. A 7th at Sebring in round 1, 4th at NOLA, a win at Atlanta, his first of the Trans Am Series. He then went to Lime Rock, took 4th there, had a bad day to Detroit in race 1, took 24th there, but then bounced back brilliantly from the back and won the second doubleheader at Detroit. Mid-Ohio, 32nd. That was his worst day of the year. Road America, 16th, not a good one either. Then bounced back with a plume at Nashville with a win from the back again. This time, though, he did it from the front, and he really does deserve the accolades for what he's achieving here for Morris Hull and his silver-haired team. Well done, Connor Zilic. He takes the win here at Watkins Glen, and one I think you'll remember for a long time to come.
Well, at such an iconic racetrack, as we talked about earlier on. I mean, this track, and Tyler, you and I were talking about this track here and Road America really are 2 tracks that I think are on the world stage, along with all the European racetracks you go to that we've had a chance to run on. So I just know this racetrack is one of my favorite. You're so lucky it's your home racetrack.
Yeah, we're super lucky there for sure. And this race had it all, right? It had weather, it had wet conditions to dry, and strategy and everything. That all came into play here. And so, definitely hats off to Connor Zilic and the whole Silver Hair team for their win today.
Yeah, I always love races like this because I know how good all of you drivers are. But when you really get pushed like this, when there's weather involved and a choice of tires and a choice of strategy too, about how you play it, and also who's calm, cool, and collected, who's a cool hand Luke, and who's not, who doesn't handle the pressure. And the truth is, racing driving is about dealing with pressure as calmly as you can, in my opinion. And I think that's when you see the true champions.
Well, and so because everybody here has so much talent, and like I said before, it's about the patience, but also the teams now are starting to play such a big point in that car setup, making the decision on the tires, what you're going to do. I mean, and these guys are all in training, so I mean, they're just learning so much. It's going to sit with them for the remainder of their career.
Yeah, as a driver, though, Connor and Brent being on the slick tires to begin the race, really falling back pretty far there. 20 seconds behind the leader, not getting impatient, knowing that they were going to have the right tires and the right car at the end. I mean, obviously, it's paid off for these guys.
Yeah. No doubt they're hearing that in the radio, but you still, and you understand it, I understand it. They tell you something on the radio, but you're not always listening.
It kills you to see them driving by you.
Yeah.
There he is. Almost slipped off the top there, but a good little photograph to be had there. And we'll, in a moment, hear from the red-headed wonder that is Connor Zilic. A great day at the office. And here comes Ben Sissel. So why don't we see if we can head down to Ben, who's got our winner and is congratulated by the opposition. That's Nick from Cube 3 saying well done to him. And I'm sure Nathan Hearn will be right out as soon as he gets out of the car to do the same. And they are doing exactly that. Let's go down now to Ben Sissel. And he's got our winner of the day, Connor Zilic.
You're out of breath.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. I'm out of breath. I had to run up the pit lane to clear it. Connor, let's get in front of your car. But I had to clear some debris so that they could come in because we want to have a great celebration. Man, unbelievable. Your team made the right call with the tires, letting those cars go by with the wets, was so smart, and then the race just seemed to come to you, and you were able to gap on the restarts. Unbelievable.
Yeah, thank you. We knew, I mean, we came up to the grid on slicks, and everyone was kind of trying to decide what they wanted, but everyone on my team seemed pretty confident with the slicks, and kind of just left it in my hands. So I had to go out there and execute and do my job, and that's what the team told me. And I knew I'd have a car capable of it, which I did. Silver Hair Racing brought me an awesome race car and made my job really easy. So those last few restarts were definitely a little hairy. I was getting nervous at times, but I know Brent's a really respectful driver, and he's not going to do anything to take me out of the race. He's really smart, and I've raced with him a bunch, so we have a lot of respect for each other. And good job to him and Nathan on their finishes as well. Just so thankful for Maurice and Laura Hole and everyone at Silver Hair Racing, Chevrolet. I had a bad fast Chevy, so that's always good, and looking forward to the rest of the season.
And congratulations. And he was talking about Brent Cruz. They've been racing together since they were like 4 or 5 years old. In fact, at almost all the races we go to, I see them at the concession stand together, getting ice cream together. Speaking of Brent Cruz, who's currently in the lead in the championship points, so this is kind of a great championship run for you, because I know Connor's hunting you down, but if you can't win, second's awesome. Was that your strategy?
Yeah, just had a super solid points day. With mixed conditions, I think your number one goal is to bring it home in one piece. I think that's a goal that everybody has when it's half raining and you don't know to go to slicks or rains or what the plan is. To bring it home in second, I think, is a great day and a good points day as well, and not a touch on the car.
Nice. Anybody you want to thank for that wonderful performance?
Yeah, I want to thank the Lord. I want to thank everybody at Frank Leonard Apparel, Toyota Racing, my whole Nitro Motorsports team, Nick Tucker, my dad, my mom, everybody that touches this thing. Ken Twaits with Franklin Road, obviously. None of this would be possible without him and just the whole team.
Nice. Brent Cruz, great championship run. And then we'll come over here because I do want to show you this. We were talking to Bo about the whole Berryman thing. This is what I was talking about. And I think Sarchit's car has even more of that. But here, let's get right here, Nathan, because we got to show this. All the Aussies are going to be very happy about this. Another podium on a super tight track, difficult conditions. How's it feel?
It's really good, and I was sort of hoping for a little bit of sprinkling like it is now, and if it stayed a little bit damp, we had a flying car. We came from 13th after, practice didn't go our way and just fought all the way through. So I hope everyone's all right for the two big crashes we had. I obviously haven't heard anything yet, but hopefully everyone's all good there.
Nice, and it's got to feel good to put it on the podium in front of two of your most important sponsors right here with Nick from Cube 3 and Bo from Berryman.
That's pretty important, yeah. So I've got to keep the sponsors happy and try to go again next year. But, look, we want to be up on the top step where Connor is, but we're getting there, to finally be consistently on a podium and consistently have a fast race car. It's good. So we just got to keep chipping away and see what happens when we come to St. Louis.
Nice. And now the rain has started. So I'm going to do the podium celebration. Gentlemen, back to you after a great race.
Great words from our top three. Well done to all of them. And as Ben pointed out, literally, those two, Brent Cruz and Connor Zilic, have been racing since they were dot. They've literally gone, both of them are World Kart champions, incidentally. So they are really the future. And guys, just sum up what you were just watching.
Well, I think we just saw some incredible stuff on the racetrack. But Tyler, what impressed me is that those youngsters and really not even the age of driving at this point in time, are standing up and doing an interview, getting all their sponsors in. It's like watching somebody step out in NASCAR, and they get everything perfect, and they are so polished because so important what you do on the track and so important what you do off the track today versus when I started, it was you had better have the speed, you better win races, and you'll make a living out of it. And now it's everything. It's the whole package.
You've got to be a well-rounded individual, not just fast. Like you said, you got to have it all. And these guys, for sure, are the full package, and that's why they're going to end up going to the top someday very soon.
Yeah, and when you say that, you and I'm a lot older than you, but, you're working out, you're getting your laps in the car, and you're going to the gym. Now you're working out, you're getting your laps in the car, and you're going to the PR house to understand what you need to do in front of the camera.
Well, thanks to Tyler Casera and Scott Goodyear. But what a race. What a experience. Let's take a look at some of the highlights. We got underway in wet conditions. You can see the wipers on, and then that meant some came in to change tyres. Connor Zilic at the front, Austin Green popping out there, Brent Cruz in the mix. Austin Green having one of the best races of his season, chasing down, and then crashes galore. Jay Buford getting together, Thomas Merrill, our champion, getting turned around. Also, Evan Slater and Anciata had problems. Lots of drama throughout this race. Zilic going wide. A massive crash, somehow avoided by Evan Slater just about. Then we had a red flag. We sat for 10, 15 minutes, and then we had the sprint to decide it. Nathan Hearn was the man of the moment. He got past and got a podium, but no one could stop Connor Zilic. Wow, let's take a look then at the results. Connor Zilic gets his 4th win of the season for Silver Hair Racing and Chevrolet. Brett Cruz is 2nd in the Ford Mustang for Franklin Road Mobile 1 and Intro Sports. And then Nathan Hearn for Cube 3 Berryman in the Ford Mustang takes 3rd. Then it's Austin Green, Dylan McAvern, Rafa Matos takes 6th, Thad Moffitt in 7th, Adam Andretti in 8th position, Chris Durbin 9th, Keith Prochuk, well, he was involved in that incident at the end there, but he gets 10th position. Darren Mock takes 11th. Then Gallagher, Bose, Abate. Welcome back to Michelle. She gets a good result, one of the best of the season. Doug Winston, 15th. Parker DeLong also involved in that crash at the end, but he does take 16th. Caleb Bacon, Luke Rumberg, Ty Young, Bruce Raymond, all coming 18th, 19th, and 20th. And further down, Ben Mayer, also involved in that incident right at the end there, is 21st. Then Phillips, Nesbitt, Goitberg, Rook, the local man, in 25th. Boris said Jr. in the end, 26, having run as high as 4th at one point. Doug Peterson retired, as did Weisberg, Sargé, and Evan Slater. A little further down, as you saw, our champion Thomas Merrill joining us in the booth, having had a crash early on. He had a spin and then was frustrated, as he admitted, and went out. And Buford likewise did not finish the race. So then, what about our cool move? Well, we got something really special for you this weekend, because the cool move can be an overtake. It can be, for Cool Shirt Systems, to win that shirt, a cool move of the race. Well, the coolest move of the race, by far, in our opinion, was this man. Watch this. This is a chance to see a bump start, which you very rarely see anywhere. But Prochuk couldn't get started, so what does Ty Young do? He gets behind him, and it's the old, here, mate, I'll give you a bump start. You just get the motor running, you get a little bit of a push, and that's enough. Drop the clutch, and away you go. That's our cool move. Well done, Ty Young. Great stuff. Looking down on the famous Watkins Glen podium, and in a moment we'll hear from our top 3 in all the categories. But what a great race that was. My thanks to Tyler Casera and to Scott Goodyear, as always, for their valuable time. Let's head down to Ben Sissel once again to bring us our podium.
Here we go. All right, you're just coming through on the hat toss here. Jonathan Scott, what a great job. The Trans Am Series presented by Pirelli at Watkins Glen International. Let's hear it, ladies and gentlemen. What a race. Unbelievable. The Big Machine Vodka Spike Coolers TA2 Series never disappoints, and especially at Watkins Glen International. So, here's what we're going to do. We're going to start the celebration. We need everybody to be loud. We're going to throw out some hats also. So the louder you are, the more hats we throw out. TA2 Pro-Am. This is a highly contested little championship inside of the championship. So, in first place, Pro-Am, get loud, New York, Empire State. The number 25, Chris Durbin. Now, here, you got to get up on top, Chris. Now, Chris, I got to say, at Grid, your car looks beautiful. Well, if you were a Concord judge, what kind of marks would you get now?
Maybe a 2.
A 2. Nice, yeah, little squiggly bits there. Yeah, some of that will buff out, I'm sure. How was your race out there? A nice job.
Race was good. We had to start in the back because of some stuff early on, but we went on dries, and it was a little sketchy to start with. Anyone who went on dries knows that, but thanks to my Flying Wrenches crew, Amsoil, all the sponsors, PME Engines, Howe, just a pretty awesome day. And we got in the top 10.
And we got in the top 10, he said, but I got one more question for you. Flying wrenches, does that mean they're really quick with the wrenches, or does that mean the wrenches come flying, like projectiles?
Yes.
Yes, I like it. Let's hear it, ladies and gentlemen. Chris Durbin, top 10 overall, but first in Pro-Am. Congratulations, beautiful car. I'm sure that'll buff out before the next round. Oh, yeah. Okay, New York, come on in here, people. New York, get loud. One more time. Chris Durbin, that beautiful number 25 Amsoil Chevrolet Camaro cow chassis Flying Wrenches crew. Big Machine Vodka Spike Coolers TA2 Masters. He was with us on the podium, I believe it's Sebring. In the number 50, let's hear it for Bruce Nesbitt. Come on now, with Breakometer. Bruce Nesbitt is the knob with a brain. Let's hear, yeah, man, you got to come up there. Masters. All right, Bruce Nesbitt.
I like this.
Yeah, the knob with the brain. Tell us about your race.
Buy a brakeometer. You'll race like I do. Put rear brake on that rainy stuff. Thank you very much, Watkins Glen. What a lesson. Woo! I want to thank my wife, Joe, Paul, all the guys. You know, without the backstory, none of this would happen for any of the drivers. So let's give all the crews a great hand.
Nice. Let's hear it. Now, you said Watkins Glen, what a lesson. Does that mean we can truly teach old dogs new tricks?
Yeah, well, I was here 23 years ago, and the track changed a little bit, and so did I figured that out. But I really, because we only had 2 laps of first practice and a few dicks, I said to Joe, the crew chief, I said, you know what, I just want to learn the track, and by God, I did.
Nice. Let's hear it. Ladies and gentlemen, always enthusiastic. I wish we could bottle this energy. Stay there. Hold that up. We're going to switch hats, Bruce. Breakometer, the knob with a brain. What a great catchphrase. One more time, Bruce Nesbitt. Learning lessons here, TA2 Masters. Nice job, Watkins Glen International. Bruce, man, nice job. You 2 for 2 this year?
Pardon me?
You 2 for 2 this year?
2 for 2.
Sebring and Watkins Glen.
I'm 82 years old.
82 years old. Ladies and gentlemen, how about that? If that is not living the dream, right there, Bruce Nesbitt. Oh, and look at that. Oh, and he's got a better arm than we do. All right, now I need you guys to get really loud because we're going to start. The Big Machine Vodka Spike Coolers TA2 Series overall podium. Again, like I always have to say, this is provisional, but I didn't see anything out there super crazy. So, in 3rd place, all the way from Australia. It's like early in the morning there. Let's hear it. Nathan Hearn, Stevens Miller Racing, Cube 3, and Berryman Products. What a race. When we came back to that restart, he was in 4th with some monsters behind him. Sorry, Chris. How cool is that? See, Bruce is over here teaching them lessons. I love it. In 2nd place, but first in the championship points. He won our Young Guns last year. He's looking to win this Big Machine Vodka Spike Coolers TA2 Series. A great championship run for him. Brent Cruz. Nitro Motorsports, Franklin Road Apparel. And don't forget, Treetop Apple Juice, right? Yeah, because you're how old?
15.
15 years old, ladies and gentlemen. Doesn't have a driver's license, but is out here, you know, racing with people like Bruce who aren't quite 15 years old. That's right, he says. I love being heckled. 1st place, ladies and gentlemen. I believe this is 2 in a row. 16, 17? 17 years old. Down here racing with Silver Hair, this beautiful car that looks untouched. Can't say that for Durbin's car, but look at this beautiful Silver Hair car there. Let's hear it, Connor Zilich. Doing everything he can. Man, I like this crowd. Nathan, 2 podiums in a row, super tight technical courses. And then coming from Australia, he said, I asked him earlier this week, has he ever done this course? And he said, oh yeah, I've done it a ton on PlayStation. But hold on, hey, I know Nick and Bo, I know you're his sponsors, but Chris is yelling at me. Can you just move right over here? How about that, Chris? All right, we love our sponsors. No, keep taking pictures. You want me to start that again? Cube 3, Berryman Products, Nathan Hearn, 2 in a row here on the podium, a super tight courses. I asked you earlier this week if you've ever done this, and he says, loads on the PlayStation. And I've never heard a driver say, yeah, I've done this track on video games and think they did it, but nice job.
Yeah, no, thank you. It's Yeah, it's been a good year for us so far. Did you want me to hold it? Or? No,
I got
it's all right. It's been a up and down year for us, and finally we're starting to find some momentum and sit in the podium consistently. At the start of the year, we were really quick and knocking on the door, but we sort of tapered off midway through. But it's great for Cube 3 and Berryman and Licamoli and everyone on the car for and Stevens Miller Racing and Howe Racing as well. It's been a big year, and everyone took a bit of a gamble bringing me over here, so I'm just really glad we're getting some momentum for the end of the year and can finish it off strong and see if we can get this Rookie of the Year title at the end of the year.
Nice. Anything you want to say to the Aussie fans?
I don't think most of them are going to be awake yet. They'll probably watch it on the post-produce, but thank you for all the support. It's a lot of people have been waking up at 1 a.m. to watch the racing, which is pretty cool, and without Australia I wouldn't be here today, so it's a bit of a dream come true. Marcus Ambrose was my mentor last year, so he had the really good, obviously, success here in NASCAR. So, not quite NASCAR yet, but it's good to, sort of follow his footsteps.
Nice. Let's hear it, Nathan Hearn. Brent Cruz, what a great run. Just start to finish, really nice. These two have been racing together since, you were 5 years old? Yep. They have ice cream together at almost every race. Really close friends until that green flag comes out. How was it out there?
Yeah, we had a great number 70 Nitro Motorsports Franklin Imperial race car today. We didn't have enough for the 7, but a second place is always something to be happy about. Just wanted to get through the whole race. Basically, was the number 1 goal to start. Having it rain and then start on slicks was pretty much a gamble for us. I think we switched 3 or 4 times, so could never make up our mind, and we actually made the right decision. So just want to thank everybody at Nitro Motorsports, Nick Tucker, and my whole family.
Nice. Let's hear it, Brent Cruz. And now Watkins Glen, I cannot say this enough. There is a very good chance, if I were a gambling person, I would put a lot of money on these 3 gentlemen are going to be up here on these steps on Saturdays and Sundays here at Watkins Glen in other series. So make sure you meet them and get their autographs after this, because we've got Toyota contract was just signed by Brent Cruz, going to be racing in that series with Toyota. And then with Chevrolet here, we've got Connor Zillage. So make sure you talk to these guys after this race, because they're going to be back here racing, I'm sure, on Saturdays and Sundays. Connor, unbelievable race. You were able to gap them. The car had to feel really good. Tell us about it.
Yeah, I did have a really good car. Silverhair Racing, they've worked really hard the past few months to put us in this position and give me these cars to go out here and win races. And today was a tougher one for sure. The weather conditions, as easy as it might have looked, that was, the first 20 minutes of that race was really, really tough as a driver. Just understanding the limit when you're on slick tires in the rain, driving 20 seconds off the pace. So, thank you to Silverhair Racing for giving me an awesome car. Maurice and Laura Hull, they've taken a chance on me and given me this opportunity to come out here and drive these cars. So thank you to them, and thank you to the entire team. They worked so hard for me, and I had a bad, fast Chevy and made my job easy. So, thankful to be able to drive these race cars, and hopefully we can finish out the year strong and maybe make a run for the championship.
Nice. All right. You know how I love the awkward questions. Last race, you started from the back and finished first. This race, you started from first and finished first. Which do you prefer?
The more fun one is starting from the back, but if I could start up...
Maurice, Laura, which one do you prefer? They like to start from the first.
Finishing first from last was more fun, but I don't like starting last. That's not... I don't want to do that anymore. So we'll hopefully be starting from the front a few more times this year.
Nice. I love it. How about that, ladies and gentlemen? Watkins Glen International. Get loud. Come on now. Last chance. Nathan Hearn, Brent Cruz, Connor Zillage. And then we've got some hats. Yeah, we got some Nathan fans out there. I love it. Watkins Glen, we love coming here. Always put on good shows. Fantastic crowd. Come on now. Nathan Hearn, Brent Cruz, Connor Zillage. Wait, you got to hold up that trophy. There we go. Nathan Hearn, Brent Cruz, Connor Zillage. Unbelievable. And then, as we spoke about earlier, only one of these drivers gets Glenora champagne. The rest get applesauce. Oh, man! But they have done this before, right into the eyes. That's going to be sticky. Oh! Look out, Jimmy on the scene coming. Oh, that's a... Oh! Hey, Jimmy, I think Connor's probably faster than you. All right. Connor, you're going to kind of stay close by. You got, oh, man, look at this. It's like a sneak attack up here. Nice job, guys. But Connor, stick around. Lady, oh, yeah, yeah, over here, anywhere. You might want to wipe your eyes. I'm good. The cool shirt, cool move of the race. I don't know if any of you saw it, but we had to bring the cars in for a red flag. Ty Young, who may have the sexiest voice in motorsports, he had to push his teammate. He put himself out of position to push his teammate Keith Prochuk so that he could bump start his own car down this hill. Probably cost him, let's say, 6 to 8 positions, but to bring his friend, his comrade, his teammate back into the race, to me, that's probably the coolest move I've seen all year. Let's hear it. Ty Young, Wealth Management. You may have seen his commercials on Bloomberg. Come on up here, Top Step. And I was not kidding. I hope you haven't been shouting on the radio, because let's hear that sexy voice.
Tell you a funny story. So they're waving me over to the podium, right? And I've never been to the podium here before in Trans Am. And so I'm like, well, I'm just going to go to the truck. They're like, no. So finally I got back here. So anyway, the Ty J. Young Wealth Management, my Coke Ford Mustang was fantastic, far better than the driver. That's why I'm not used to being up here on the podium. But anyway, congratulations to Connor. Nice run today, and to Silver Hair. And Keith was stalled there. He couldn't get it going. I was right there behind him, gave him a push. Cost me a few positions, but my buddy's back in the race, and that's what it's all about to me, racing out here with friends. I love this series.
Nice. How about that, ladies and gentlemen? Ty Young. Thank you, sir. You can't take that Happy Gilmore check home, though. But I will tell you this. Hey, you ever want to do some voiceovers? I can pay you like $20 for each voiceover you do for us.
You got a deal. I'll do
it. You heard that right here. Got a deal. All right, the Omo Legato, fastest lap, fastest times. He gets another Omo Legato watch. Connor Zilic, ladies and gentlemen, how about that? He is collecting these Omo Legato watches, beautiful watches and timepieces given out each race in the Big Machine Vodka TA2 series. Thank you very much. Connor, nice job, man. Unbelievable. We got to go get more ice cream, though. All right, so, ladies and gentlemen, that does it here for the Trans Am series presented by Pirelli, the Big Machine Vodka Spike Coolers TA2 series. We love coming here. We will be back here again next year, about the same time of year, so make sure you come out. Thank you for staying tuned. Now go out there for the fan walk for the Governor's Cup, and thank you. Can't wait to see you guys again next year.
Great stuff, Ben Sissel, rounding out the podium at Winner's Circle. But what a day, folks. I tell you, these are the days you remember and why you love motorsport. If you were tuning in, it doesn't get any better than that. The birthplace of road racing in America, Watkins Glen from 48 to 2023. Young guns going at it in tough conditions, the toughest you can imagine, starting in the wet, coming in potentially to change to wets or to dries, or in the case of Zilic, making the right decision, and just pure, utter great racing. Well done to Nathan Hearn, well done to Brent Cruz, and well done to our winner again, his 4th of the season, Connor Zilic. Join us next time as we head to St. Louis next time. Bye-bye for now.
Hungry for SVRA action? Well, the best way to enjoy classic auto racing is with a delicious classic from Mission Foods. Green flag your race-watching snacks with Mission's mouth-watering race day recipes. Try some of our tasty tacos, piled high nachos, fresh chips with guac, and more. So gear up your ride and fuel up those stomachs with delicious Mission Foods. Now that's too fast, too tasty.
low to medium volume production parts and full assemblies utilizing the latest manufacturing technology and automation, which 3D continually invest in. We are able to deliver high quality parts rather than empty promises. 3D takes on the jobs our competitors simply can't. The Three-Dimensional Services Group loves the challenge. Our team is your team. The Three-Dimensional Services Group, prototype, production, proven.
You've got a business to run, big and heavy products to ship, and customers who need them now. When you've got the right driver and the right equipment, you can bet on a spectacular result. Bennett understands complex logistics and puts the best team, the most time, and the latest technology into every customer relationship. So you can sit back, relax, and enjoy the race. Let us handle the rest.
Together, we can move anything.
I'm Richard Petty, and you might say I've had a fairly successful driving career. And you know the secret of my success? Having a good support team around me when I need it. Whether you're a route driver, over-the-road trucker, or you're interested in driving special purpose vehicles, Clean Harbors is the kind of place where you can build a long driving career. Do yourself a favor, give Clean Harbors a call.
How good is this? Look at this view from Losowski.
It brings all my fans, it brings the audience into the car with me.
Speed turn, 140 mile an hour entry speeds.
The quickest and most efficient way for me to get information to my drivers is from using the V-Box HD2 system.
Speed, endurance, desire. For 160 years, Motul has helped engines and drivers go faster, further, and stronger. Tested in the heat of battle, driven with passion, with one aim, to give you superior powertrain protection and performance. Motul.
Honey, did you do something to the car? It's so quiet.
Do the new P0 AS Plus 3 tires from Pirelli provide a quieter ride? Yes. The new tires from Pirelli deliver high performance, and as she noticed, an exceptionally quiet and comfortable ride. The new P0 AS Plus 3 tires from Pirelli. Performance for every mile.
Hello, race.
Not on.
Hello, race fans. Check, check.
But they can't on the PA.
Check, check.
Is the other one working? Check. There we go. Well, good afternoon, race fans. Thank you all for joining us for the Hilliard U.S. Vintage Grand Prix this weekend as we prepare to send out the cars for the Governor's Cup race. We're reminded of the rich racing history here at the Glen. The annual Governor's Cup was issued by former New York Governor George Pataki back in 1999 to commemorate the Watkins Glen for its significance in auto racing. The Hilliard U.S. Grand Prix weekend is home to the largest gathering of historic and vintage race cars in New York State, which provides an economic impact for the Finger Lakes region. For 75 years, road racing has been a part of Watkins Glen life, racing in the streets to today's permanent circuit, Watkins Glen International. Other milestones celebrated this year are the 100th anniversary for MG and the 70th anniversary for the Chevrolet Corvette, which has its origins here at Watkins Glen. To celebrate these monumental events, the marquee car for the upcoming Governor's race will be the American icon, the Chevrolet Corvette. May the competitors race with a healthy spirit and good sportsmanship. Now, race fans, please rise and remove your hats as we begin our pre-race ceremonies. First, let's welcome Watkins Glen International long-term partner, president and CEO of the Hilliard Corporation, Jan Vanderblink. Jan, welcome back to Watkins Glen. Hilliard's such an important part of this event. It's great to have you here today.
Thank you very much. On behalf of all of us, Meyer, New York, Hilliard Corporation, a 115-year-old company. We've been here many years now. We're very happy to sponsor this event, particularly this week. So great to be here. Wish everybody good afternoon.
Jan, what do you have a favorite memory from all the years that you supported this event here at Watkins Glen?
They're all great. You never had a bad day to race, so happy to be here all.
Jan, thank you. Enjoy the Governor's Cup.
Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, Jan Vandenblank from Hilliard. Thank you so much for sponsoring today's event once again. Now please welcome the Boy Scouts from Troop 87 in Big Flats, New York, as they present our nation's colors. To announce today's invocation, we recognize Reverend David Fife from the Elmwood Avenue Baptist Church in Elmira Heights, New York.
Let's pray. Lord God, we thank you for the opportunity to gather here at Watkins Glen for this year's running of the Hilliard U.S. Vintage Grand Prix. We ask your blessing upon this race, with your hand of protection upon each driver, course worker, and crew member. And help us to remember, Lord, to remember that all good things come from you. Amen.
Thank you, Reverend Fife. To present our national anthem, please give a warm welcome to local singer from Buffalo, New York, Anna Hertz.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting here gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the
one too.
Too late.
Hold. Oh, you're
That's
done.
it. I'm done.
Oh.
Show's over.
Okay.
Sorry.
So, with that wonderful rendition of our national anthem, we get ready now for our next race, which is, of course, as you just heard, the Governor's Cup. And this is a big event for Watkins Glen and the history of this event. I'm going to be joined by Bill Green, who is the Grand Marshal of this year's event and the official historian of Watkins Glen. And as an 8-year-old, he went to the first race in 1948, and he's been pretty much constant ever since. And so therefore, in 75 years, he has been the oracle, if you will, of what has taken place both down on the streets of Watkins Glen for the first few years, which was 48 to 52, and then in the mid-50s, once this track was built, and on from then. It's been a storied history that has gone up and down financially and physically, in terms of its layout and in terms of its history, from being in the 60s and 70s, one of the great Formula One tracks, and of course the American Grand Prix held here for many a year, and then some closures, some declines, and then some rebirths. Back in 97, the track was purchased by International Speedway Corporation, ISC, the parent company of NASCAR, and renovations were made, and, you know, it's gone from strength to strength ever since then. And right now, we're going to celebrate the Governor's Cup. And as you've heard, it was George Pataki who announced, he was the governor of New York, who announced in 99 the Governor's Cup. And that has been a regular race since then. And this year, we honor the 70-year history of Chevrolet Corvette. And as you can see, every car that you're looking at is a Corvette, from C1 to C8. The beauty of Corvette, of course, is that you know exactly the eras, because they did it very, very well planned. In other words, whenever they came out with a new kind of Corvette, they basically called it the C1 all the way through the generations to the C8. And in fact, I was very privileged recently to finally get a close look at the latest Corvette, which is the E-Ray, an electric car. And I have to say, electric or not combustion, it is just as much a Corvette as any that has ever been produced. But let's take a look at some of these classic Corvettes, because here they are on the pre-grid, getting ready to go out. And in a moment, they will send them out onto the track. And like I said, different eras of Corvette represented. And they're, of course, Duntov Motor Company, one of the great Corvette preparation cars. Duntov family have been involved with Corvettes, both designing, selling, and being part of the Corvette family. Claire Schwindeman getting ready to go out. She's already had a run today, but now getting ready for the Governor's Cup. And I'm going to be joined, I hope, by some guests. And I've mentioned Bill Green, but you never know, we might get a look from Tony Pirelli, of course, who was a big Corvette and still is a big Corvette man, but has put his time and attention into running the series. But he is a big fan of the Corvette in every which way. He saw one down at the enactment the other night and was gleefully running across to go and have a look at it. And that's what it's all about. And the following of Corvette is quite unique in the 70-year history of the car itself. Been through many, many iterations. And, well, just to give you an example, we've got cars, we've got roadsters out there. We've got different years represented. We've got Edward Savajian driving one of them, and he is one of the top drivers at the moment in this field. But also, Front Row Joe is out there in the field. Joe Nemechek, the famous NASCAR driver, retired long ago, but still doing some vintage, and that's great to see. And as they come out, we'll get ready for this Governor's Cup. And let's just listen to that beautiful sound as they head out of the pits. Now, as I mentioned, we've had some interesting guests throughout the day. It's great to have Tyler Casera, one of our drivers here. We've had Scott Goodyear in the booth. And my thanks also to Adam Andretti, who came in yesterday. But right now, I'd like to introduce you to our Grand Marshal this weekend. And we were swapping stories about the history of Corvette and how it all came to be. And I'm going to make him tell the story again, because you could argue Jonathan Green is joined by Bill Green. But but you could argue, Bill, that the Corvette, and let's tell the story, kind of got its start here in Watkins Glen. Tell us about it.
The Corvette happened during the weekend of 1951 Sports Car Grand Prix, when they ran through, when the Harley Earl brought one of the show cars for people to look at. And Nick Faboni had invited it. He was the local Chevy dealer, and he said, you'll get a lot of publicity out of it. They use it as a show car inside. So they brought it, and it also led the concourse parade around the circuit counterclockwise, and drew a lot of attention. It also drew a lot of attention to Harley, because he didn't see an American sports car. They were all foreign cars, and Briggs Cunningham wasn't building Cunningham's the touring cars until 1952. So after that weekend, they went back to Detroit. By 1953, they'd built a number of those new 1953 Corvettes. And so Nick Faboni called out there to where he normally would order his cars, said for the dealership, said, I'd like to get one for the Concours in September for the Grand Prix. And they said, no, we can't do that. So he got on and drove out there and went to see the same guy again. They said, no. So he went across wherever Harley's office was and went in to see Harley. And Earl wasn't there, but one of the fellows with him was. And he says, tell me what you want. And he told him. He picked the telephone up, dialed a number. When he hung up the phone, he says, you got one. And it came out of the Buffalo distribution area to Watkins Glen, and it happened. And when they came down Franklin Street, or the main street, it was escorted by two guys on saddle horses. One was Mr. Stokes, and the other was Walter Ganong. And it happened. And this was the birthplace for the idea and the birthplace of Corvette.
And here we are in 2023, and a host of Corvettes for our Governor's Cup as the green flag is waved. And I'm delighted. No relation, but you never know.
Never know.
Somewhere in our past,
Never know.
Bill Green and Jonathan Green. I've never done a green duo. That's great. Yeah. But yeah, and where does the Sabra name come into that combination?
That was a model number that they'd made, I guess, the way I heard it, and that was a show car.
Ah, okay.
They were designing like futuristic designs. And the other thing I can tell you about that car that day they led the concourse down was that it got down almost to the foot of the hill where the Sinclair gas station was, and it quit. And they had to push it all the way down to the Chevy garage to get it going again.
Oh, no.
But it made its return for the first time here at Watkins Glen this weekend on the courthouse lawn again.
That's brilliant.
And Kip Zeter, who works with me at the library, was pretty much responsible for getting that car. It was on and off, and finally it was on.
That's great news.
It was great news.
Yeah, really cool. And
the way I take it, that the GM people are very happy, so we may have something exciting next year.
All right.
Vintage.
Good. Well, you know, I was very lucky. I was just mentioning before you came in that the Corvette story is far from over. They celebrate 70 years this year of making the wonderful car that is the Chevrolet Corvette. But it is truly, and it's, you know, it's an American mark. The Mustang, obviously, everybody talks about, but you know, it hasn't had the storied history of international racing that the Corvette has had, and even to this day at Le Mans, you know, they go out winning. With the C8, and I was privileged enough to see the E-Ray, the new E-Ray coming out. So the presence of Corvette is ever present here in America, and I think they're just as popular as ever, whether it be a brand new car or one of these classics that we're looking at right now. Is there any particular era from C1 through C8 that you particularly like?
Well, the first one was here in 1955, and Addison Austin had it. And it ran also in other SCCA races, but it made its debut here and did fairly well. There's another thing, I can jump ahead just a tad bit before I come back.
Go on.
Did you ever know that there was the chassis number 005 Grand Sport lived in this area for a while?
Okay.
That was the Irwin brothers in Painted Post.
Okay.
And that was, a lot of people never knew that. But as it went on, Corvettes in the A and B and C production ran in the Glen Trophy. And many times they won that particular event. And also in the regional race we had here in the Glen Classic, it was always popular. And of course, one of the cars on the grass at the courthouse this weekend was the Purple People Leader, which Jim Jeffers won the Glen Trophy with in 1958, and which now belong to the Miller brothers, who run Carlisle auto shows and flea market things at Watkins or in Pennsylvania. That's one of the 55.
We've seen that car earlier in the day. That's the 55.
Yep.
Bill Schwack at the wheel of that lovely Corvette, and he's in about, fourth place. It's Claire Schwindeman leading the way at the moment from Jeff Lehman, and Rick Ortman in third, and Schwack, as you just saw there, in fourth position. Simon Lane in fifth, as our Governor's Cup continues. So the Governor's Cup, I'm just reading from the script here a little bit, but was basically formed by Governor Pataki, yeah?
That's correct.
In 1999.
Right.
And basically it was to celebrate what Watkins Glen had achieved and what it was doing for the local area, really,
right,
for New York, because a lot of international races have come here over the years, and therefore the economy has grown because of that.
You know, one of the things that back in 1948 that was discussed or you can draw upon was that this brought people to come to the area other than the Glen, and then there was a deer in the Glen that was publicized by Arthur Richards in the local newspaper, and it got wide spread nationally too. But to get people to come to this area is tourism.
Yeah.
You know, and it did. It brought it for even the weekend that it was here, and then eventually down the road, the Grand Prix of the United States, 6 hours, and the Trans Am and the Formula 5000, all, you know, and then in modern times, the IMSA cars, you know, and the Indy cars came here for the first time in 1979 with an SCCA Nationals. And the last professional race, Watkins Glen, was an IndyCar race in 1981 on the long course, which Rick Mears won. And then we went through a dark time when they were under bankruptcy, but the SCCA National Club Racers kept that alive, along with the Glen region and the Finger Lakes region of the Sports Car Club of America organized races. And eventually, through the bankruptcy times, in 1982 fall, there was an auction of the property here, and there was a crowd in the courthouse lawn bigger than what you've seen if you were downtown this last Friday. And when it got underway, there were two bids, and first one was $100,000, and the second one was $1,250,000.
I wonder which one they went with. I wonder which one they went with.
They went with the Bank of New York, who bid it back.
How bad?
Then the Glen region was appointed to administer racing here at the Glen. There was no pro races. There was thought of one. And then, of course, the Glen region also had a committee called the Green Flag Committee. It was chaired by Abe Ketchum. And we eventually put together and eventually got word and put together that Corning Incorporated was very much interested in buying the circuit. And that, of course, fit in with their one of their little arms, which was Corning Incorporated, which covered a lot of other things other than glass making.
Right.
And, of course, They bought it, and then in September they announced the partnership with International Speedway Corporation, or NASCAR, to equally operate this, but no one could buy. One could buy out the other, but nobody could control the power. And of course, at that meeting also, it was mentioned, how long does it take to get a cup race here? And Bill France Jr. says, about 2 years. And it was 2 years. And so, but the first 84 season had a double, what I called the double Camel, because Camel Cigarettes sponsored IMSA in those series. And you raced one day for 3 hours, stopped, picked up, and raced the next day for 3 hours. Then there was the SCCA Trans Am weekend, and then in the fall it was the Steuben Cup race, which was a little bit longer race. And that was the first year, along with club races, under the new organizer and owner.
Interesting. And we've just been watching Jim Glass go about his paces, currently in 8th position, chasing down Rib Regner. But it's Jeff Lehman who is in the lead at the moment, as we take a look at Del Bruce in his yellow Roadster. And got the roll cage on there, but some beautiful machines. And I know you've had a close look at them because they all go on the parade. But we were talking earlier, I now, having gone to the reenactment, they do the reenactment of the 48 to 52 race, as you well know. You were down there yourself, but I had not really just realized how important this weekend is to the people of Watkins Glen, because motorsport fan or not motorsport fan, the whole of the community is out there. Young kids, old folk, young folk, motor racing fans, non-motor racing fans, and from Corning, you mentioned there, from all different cities in the Finger Lake area, and you can tell just what it means to them. It's like a festival.
It's a festival. There's many things that go on. You know, there's the reenactment. There's some solo events that run in the parking lot up near where Mr. Chicken used to be. The reenactment of the tech inspection at Smalley's Garage, which took place for the first time in 1949 and lasted until 1961, till they moved it up here at the track. It was in a big tent. Then they built the first half of what is the maintenance garage today. It was the Kendall Garage, and that's where they inspected the cars and stored the Formula One cars when it came time. Or the 6-hour cars. They built a bigger addition on it some years later, and all the cars came up. And now it's just the maintenance building where they store the cars. To this weekend is where the Cup cars are for the NASCAR race, and it's used for other things too. You know, there's regional races, and there's even a Green Grand Prix, which is the Green Grand Prix is everything like. Organic, you know, like you could run methyl alcohol, you know, or stuff like that, right. You know.
Well, unfortunately, the heavens have opened again, Bill, but we're used to this here at Watkins Glen. And, of course, I suppose this is the last hurrah of summer in many ways. We're moving into the colder period here in the northeast, and so this sort of weather will just become more and more frequent as winter approaches. Sadly, though, in some of those open Chevrolets there, they're going to be getting a little wet because the rain started to fall down. But we just saw Rick Altman in the 14A, and here comes the 55 again of Bill Schwack. And they are almost together on track. Completely different Corvettes, but you start to see the history and how the design and the flow of the car still very much the lines of a Corvette, but you can see how it's changed over the years. And I tell you what, that 55, not worrying about the weather, going straight through. And how about that Trans Am race?
Pardon?
How about that Trans Am race you just watched?
That was a great race. I could remember when it rained here in 1970, when Pirelli and was leading the race, and then it started to rain. And I said to one fella, I says, "You watch now, the road racer is going to take over." And pretty soon there was Vic Elford in the lead and Jim Hall's Camaro, and went right on and won that particular race. And of course, Can-Am that year, there was the 2J of Jim Hall's, and it was driven by Jackie Stewart when it made its debut here. And it went fast, but the one thing that it would do was spit the stones out the back because of the suction device.
Ah, right, okay.
Had they allowed it to run the next year, the suction device would have been changed, and the snowmobile motor that ran the suction blades would have been eliminated and would have been driven off the main motor.
Interesting.
So
Very interesting.
So it was really would have been a technical development.
Yeah, and that's, I'm sure, over your period of watching the races here, you've seen quite literally the sort of reformations stroke innovations of all the car designs, whether they be American or European, or in some cases Formula One and Can-Am. But it really is a sort of hotbed of design and innovation. That's what I love about motor racing, is that you really see some brilliance.
I'll tell you something that happened locally for 2 years. Where you see the inner loop, there was a chicane. Okay, the chicane was a paddock. Drag racing, you drag raced a quarter of a mile down the hill. It's bigger woods down there. And who do you think sanctioned that? That was NASCAR.
Ha!
Yep.
So,
and for 5 weekends during the summer, you had Sunday drag racing. Local guys such as Junior DeSarno would drag race up here, Pat Bartholomew, and you had Nathan Hughes from Corning, who had a slingshot dragster.
What kind of cars did they drag race?
They had Corvettes.
Okay.
And had a slingshot dragster, and that thing went 103 down the quarter mile, and it was like Color Me Gone. And that was some of the other things. They had snowmobile races in the summer from 1971 to 73, but 74 it warmed up, and many other events here. A local club had solo events up here and all that stuff. And Corvettes were in that too.
Yeah, I'll bet. Yep, it's
along
been
with
ever
the
present.
6 hours.
Well, here's your leader, Jeff Lyman, in that all-black Chevrolet in the 77, leading quite distinctively now from Claire Schwindeman, who started at the front. But he's now in second place, and Schwack in the 55 is in third. The rain and the downpour I don't know if it's continued, but we definitely got quite a down drop a moment ago, but I think it's clearing up again, so hopefully we'll stay that way. We're at to set the white flag. Bill, what's your most enjoyable period then at Watkins Glen, would you say, or are you still enjoying it as much as ever?
I enjoy all of it, but the town, when it went through town, it was golden.
I'll bet. And you were 8, right? When I
was 8 years old.
I love it. Where were you?
11.
Where did you stand?
I sat in the Howgate Tavern, which isn't there anymore. My mother waited table there because we had farm, and my own dad had died. And she says, "You ever been to a car race?" Well, I hadn't. We go to the fair and see horse races.
Yeah.
So I sat down, and you come in, and this one way there was a table. I never left that only once to go to the bathroom. That's how it hit me.
It hit you, and you never looked back, yeah.
No, in the next 2 years, I was on my aunt's porch down just below the start-finish line. The last 2 years, I was on the old Glen National Bank at the Four Corners.
Okay.
In 52 and 51. I could see come down on to Milliken's Corner and all that. So it was thrilling. But then we still had good racing, but when the Grand Prix of the United States came here, and the first 3 Formula Libre races, in the 1960 had Jack Brabham, world's champion reigning, Sterling Moss, Oliver Gendebien, Roy Salvadori, Paul O'Shea, an American, Bill Sadler, all the stars of that time were there for that race. But the first one to go over 100 miles an hour in the Formula Libre was Joe Bonnier in 1958, without the use of the chicane on the back. It was right around 102 miles an hour in a 250F Maserati.
Ooh, wow!
Which was an ex-Fangio car.
An actual Fangio car.
Yeah, chassis number 2525.
Wow!
It was actually the one that won the German Grand Prix in '57.
Well, we're on the final lap, Bill. We could talk all night, but we're coming to the end of this one anyway. But we'll have you back in whenever you can make it up here and want to come in, because you're a wealth of knowledge, and it's an absolute joy to sit alongside you and hear what the true history of this event and what Watkins Glen means to you as one of the locals and to so many of the locals here. But here is Jeff Lyman in the 77, coming to the checkered flag to complete the Governor's Cup for 2023. My thanks to Bill Green joining me here, the current Grand Marshal of the event. And have you enjoyed your weekend?
Yes.
Good.
Good.
Well, we're delighted to have you here. Claire Schwindeman comes across the line in second place, and Bill Schwack takes third. Venditelli finishes in fourth place. Rick Ortman drops down to fifth, having been third at one point. Simon Lane sixth, James Glass seventh, Del Bruce in eighth position, Rib Regener in ninth position, and Alex Hackert in 10th. That's your top 10, and a fantastic honour to Corvette, and they well deserve it. 70 years in the making. Let's take a look at some of the highlights then of this race, because it was a good one. And Jeff Lyman right at the sharp end throughout most of it. And like we said, the Governor's Cup started back in 1999, and we continue that tradition today. Let's take a look then at those highlights, and off we went. Lyman in third at the start of this, but he made his way to the front, and sadly Rick Ortman, who had been at the front, went backwards a little bit. He dropped down to sixth, and I think that could well have been to the drops of rain that we had. We had a little mini downpour. Rick Orton was at third place at one point, but then he dropped down to fifth, and coming through then, therefore, was Jeff Lyman, number 5, also in the mix. As everybody getting a good day out at the races. The 55 of Bill Schweck then taking third place. But in the end, it was Jeff Lyman in the 77, taking that checkered flag to win the Governor's Cup of 2023. Well, my thanks to Bill Green for coming in. I appreciate it, Bill. I'm glad you have enjoyed your weekend. Don't forget MAV TV, Watkins Glen International, all the highlights for the Big Machine Vodka Spike Coolers TA2 series. That on Thursday, September 14th at 8 p.m. Eastern. And then right afterwards, the highlights of the TA, XGT, SGT, and GT, and that again, 9 p.m. Eastern. So you've got back-to-back highlights of this weekend's racing from Watkins Glen on MAV TV, and right after that, the documentary series following the Showtime team, a look behind the scenes. My thanks to Bill Green, our Grand Marshal. My thanks to Tony Pirella and all of those who've put on the event. Greenlight Television for bringing you the pictures. It's been a fun weekend, a fantastic bunch of racing. Despite the weather, and we got lucky in many ways. Yes, we had the weather, but it didn't actually rain so hard that we couldn't put the event on. We had a few sessions we had to miss because of the weather and fog, but we got things going and got it underway. So delighted to have had that. From me, Jonathan Green, until next time, we'll be racing at St. Louis at the Worldwide Technology Center next, and then it's VIR and COTA to finish off the season. That's Trans Am and SVRA, but more great racing coming your way. I hope you've enjoyed our coverage this week. Jonathan Green, goodbye for now.
Taking on the challenge, equipping yourself with the best, moving ahead. It's about going further, faster, in racing and in everyday life. At Customers Bank, we know that great things happen when you combine the best of technology with a deeply human touch. So we offer a wide range of personal, small business, and commercial banking solutions with outstanding personal service, giving you the edge you need to take on tomorrow.
The Gateway Speed Tour comes to Worldwide Technology Raceway September 22nd through the 24th, featuring the Trans Am Series presented by Pirelli, the Sports Car Vintage Racing Association, and Saturday, take part in the Haggerty Cars and Caffeine Car Show with parade laps. You do not want to miss the Gateway Speed Tour September 22nd through the 24th. Children 12 and under are free. For tickets, simply go to speedtour.net.
That bush is really coming along. Hi, Carla. What are you up to?
Oh, I just spent the whole morning having a little battery-powered fun.
I can see that.
This thing is powerful. Hey, honey, I was just gushing about our new favorite toy.
Let me tell you, the battery life on this thing, you wouldn't believe it. Sometimes we need a little extra push to get there. Sometimes, hey, I let it do all the work for me.
And it has so many different settings. All right, Joel, ready to go again?
You should join us sometime.
I've got to get me one of those.
But here comes the battle for the checker flag. I believe it is. Ryan Ness getting the win.
Yes. Hon, the WeatherTech's here.
WeatherTech is the ultimate protection for your vehicle. Laser measured floor liners, no drill mud flaps, cargo liner, bump step, seat protector, and cup phone.
What about my car?
WeatherTech,